Okay, I would like to call the February 4th Park Board meeting to order. Welcome those who are here in attendance. And Leslie, you call roll.
Christie. Here. Hanley. Here. And before I say the next name, we have a new Park Board member. So I'd like to introduce Ryan Cadet. He was appointed to the Park Board by the City Council on Monday, so welcome. And we're doing roll call, so I just call your name, and then you say yay if you're here.
Here.
So Cadet.
Here.
Lehrman.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Samersky.
Here.
And Chair Ingraham.
Here. Next, we'll look for approval of the agenda. There's two things to point out. Scroll up. Did it change on the screen here or not, the order?
No.
Okay. First, we're going to be changing the order of the business items. Big Willow will go ahead of Cullen for a scheduling reason. And then also there's an addendum to the packet, which maybe not everyone's had a chance to see, but if you go online now, excuse me, and click on the packet, the addendum starts at page 188, which is includes comments received since the packet went out. Primarily relating, I think all relating to Big Willow Plan.
So just to clarify, if you approve the change to the addendum, item 7C would become item 7B.
Right.
And then item 7B would become 7C.
So do I have a motion for approval of the agenda as noted?
I move to approve the agenda as noted.
I'll second.
Christie.
Yes.
Hanley.
Yes.
Cadet.
Yes.
Lehrman.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Samersky.
Yes.
And Chair Ingraham.
Yes. Next, approval of the minutes of our January 7th meeting. Any questions or comments before we look for a motion? Corrections? If not,
I move we accept the minutes as written.
I second.
All right, Christie.
Yes.
Hanley.
Yes.
Cadet.
Abstain.
I should note that. Lehrman.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Samersky.
Yes.
And Chair Ingraham.
yes. The next item is citizens wishing to discuss items not on the agenda. I do see people here tonight. Anybody want to make any comments on something that's not on the agenda? Okay. If that not, we'll go to special matters, of which we have none,
We have no special
which
meetings.
brings us to business item 7A, which is the appointment of chair and vice chair.
Yeah, so Chair Ingraham and Park Board members, at the February meeting of each year, the Park Board is charged with electing a chair and a vice chair. Currently, as you know, Chair Ingraham is chair, and Kate Samersky is acting as vice chair. And so I will really turn it over to you. You can handle it in a few ways. You can self-nominate, you can nominate somebody else, you can talk amongst yourselves, but we will need to have a motion and a second to determine who is chair and vice chair.
Any comments?
Yeah, comment.
Yes.
Do you guys want to do it again?
Sure.
Sure, okay.
And we're going to do it again.
All right, well, so I'm going to nominate these two fine people to re-up.
That's a motion.
That's a
It's
motion.
my motion.
I second.
Second? Okay. All right. That's easy. Christie.
Yes.
Hanley.
Yes.
Cadet.
Yes.
Lehrman.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Samersky.
Yes.
And Chair Ingraham.
Yes.
That was easy.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now we're going to go to item 7B, Big Willow Master Plan.
Yes, Chair and Park Board members, so I will turn this over to Matt, but just to remind you, for this item, this is the first time that the Park Board is seeing this draft plan as a whole. You've had some conversations about different parts of it, but this is not a time where we're looking for a motion. We're looking for discussion and feedback. We may want to hear from some of the community members as well. So I'll have turn it over to Matt and our consultant, Eric Holt, who's from Bolton and Bank. And then they can present, you can certainly ask questions, and then maybe hear from the public.
Thank you, Leslie. Chair Ingraham, Park Board. Tonight I would like to present the first draft of the Big Willow Park Master Plan. So a little bit of a background on this process. So the Park Master Planning strategy was laid out in the Parks Open Space and Trails Plan. I'll keep referring to this as the POST plan throughout this presentation. Really the idea is to lay out sort of a roadmap for planned park improvements over the next decade or two. It's a long-term master plan. Really big ideas is the logic here. So park master planning is really about inventorying and assessing the conditions of our major parks throughout the city, identifying unique user trends, new trends in park users, and to prioritize park improvements and investments if necessary. So the mission statement behind the POST plan is comprised of several guiding principles. These are around advancing environmental sustainability and resiliency, to provide connections to our park and trail system, and all the programmings that recreation puts on in our park system, to promote community health and wellness, to promote equity and inclusion, and support excellence and innovation in our park system. So really, park master planning is about surveying and outreach to the community. It's really meant to be a discussion amongst city leaders and the community about what they want in their park systems. So we ask residents, how do they use the park? We're not pushing change for change's sake, so we ask people what shouldn't change, and if so, if anything should change, what needs improvement in these particular parks. We use what's called human-centered design considerations. These are about creating inclusive placemaking. We seek to accommodate the largest group of potential users while protecting our highly valuable natural resources in the city. So that was a little bit of a background. Big Willow Park planning started off earlier this year. So we put a variety of signs throughout the park with a QR code that brought people to this Minnetonka Matters page. So this has been the hub for park planning for 6+ months now. We hosted a table for information about the park planning at the open house in the city back in October, I believe, at this point. We hosted a table at the Latino Cultural Heritage celebration in Hopkins, so engaged with a lot of folks out there. We've received 1,700 plus visitors to Minnetonka Matters on this page, 26 fresh downloads of the draft plan and all its chapters that was just issued last week. There's been 73 downloads of the restoration plan, which is also included on that page, and 308 survey responses during that period. So we got this pretty new document with the help of Bolton and Mank. They're a cross-disciplinary engineering firm. I have Eric Holt here tonight. He'll jump in a little later. He's a landscape architect who helped with his communications folks on staff, engineers on staff. It's really a multidisciplinary effort to get these plans together. So I'll walk through briefly the table of contents and what we're calling the guiding principles of this particular document. So in the table of contents there, you'll see in the document, it's quite a long PDF overall. There's an executive summary that looks at the overall vision, these guiding principles, and an overview of the recommendations and implementation plan out of this master plan document. There's an introduction which sort of lays out the purpose of these plans, where they sort of fit in the greater scheme of park improvements. It outlines the process and an overall timeline and all the related studies that we referenced, the Natural Resources Master Plan, the POST plan, a variety of other documents. Then we outlined this inventory and analysis process, how we went through looking at the condition of the park that it's in currently, sort of get a bead on how things are holding up out there. We explain the community engagement process and go through the engagement results, the survey results we got from the community. And then we go through plan recommendations for 4 discrete areas within the park, and we'll get into that a little further. And then we get into what we call design standards, so sort of the basic concepts of what improvements in the park could look like, precedent images of other similar park-like features, sort of set the tone, put the vibe out there on what we're proposing in the park. The guiding principles for this particular document are lined up with the post plan for the most part. Advance environmental sustainability, connections to nearby trails and other parks, community health and wellness, equity and inclusion, and excellence and innovation in our park system. So a little bit on the process here. That inventorying, the blue top left, is really the first stage of the process. We do that during the initial part of the engagement. Then we look through the existing conditions in the park in that analyze phase. Then we begin to make recommendations for park improvements. And that's where we're at now. We're sort of in the beginning of that recommendation phase where we put this back out of the community to give them something to consider, to sink their teeth into, to react to, and thus start to present it to city leaders, see what folks are thinking. So the inventory and analysis is really quite detailed. There's quite a few pages in the document about it. We really looked at current conditions and tried to look at essential needs and opportunities. There's sort of this matrix of things that are in good condition, things that are in relatively poor condition, and could use some improvement. So I know this is a lot to take in on the screen here. I would advise looking through the document. But the key themes in the inventory and analysis are connectivity, safety and accessibility, facility condition, and program offerings. So what sort of elements do we offer in our park system? So some initial engagement results. There's a lot more in the document, but through the survey and open house feedback, we found that people generally live close to Big Willow who go there, and they go there often. They go there quite frequently. So we've had 24% of survey respondents say they go more than 3 times a week. So they're making it a point to get into the park quite often. And there's a fairly even split between people who actually walk into the park through its various entrances and folks that actually drive there or go for a ball, baseball events on the field, and use the parking lots sort of distributed around the park. Some key findings also include that folks are really interested in the trail network. There's beautiful rolling hills. The creek goes through Big Willow, as you know. So folks are really interested in the trail network out in Big Willow and want to see it improved. There's a lower amount of residents that feel that the park is generally accessible. So we did realize through this process that there are some slope issues and some of the bridge crossings that need improvement. So we did see that in some of the survey results, that there were some concerns about general accessibility through the park. Overall, 43% of the people wanted to see additional trail connections, additional considerations for loops within the park, and additional connections into the park, so parking and ways to access the park. So we divided the park into 4 general areas. So the idea here was sort of to have sort of discrete areas that we could talk through. Big Willow really has a eastern area, which is a big ball complex, and then more of a western natural rolling hills area. The idea was to divide the parks up into this area to focus in on them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Holt, and he'll walk through some of the particulars of each one of these areas. So Eric?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so as Matt said, this is a pretty large community park. The east portion of the park, which we're calling Area 1, is this athletic complex. Basically, right, that's your most active uses.
Kind of separated geographically from the western portion of the park with some surface waters there. The railroad embankment is an interesting challenge for this, sort of the connectivity and continuity of this park. I know there's been some safety concerns over the years with folks making their own crossings. And then, even some, recent land acquisitions and things further west, and thinking about the park in the context of sort of greenway connectivity along Minnetonka Boulevard and along Minnehaha Creek. So how do we treat the park as, one connected, consistent park, but then drill down to kind of organize, at least for the recommendations here, in a way it's easier to chew. So Area 1, like I mentioned, this is where the most sort of physical built infrastructure is. This is probably the most active operations and maintenance occurs. big use events with baseball and softball tournaments, soccer. This is where 90% of the parking, off-street parking of the park is. As we look at these, before I kind of list all the areas, I want to say, overall, kind of what we're trying to do with this project is distribute some more, parking, easier access around the scale of this park, right? Kind of spread things out just a little bit. And so as we look at these different areas, there's kind of different uses that kind of emerge. Anyway, we're looking at mostly kind of reinforcing and improving the uses in Area 1 here, right? There's some things at the end of its life as far as infrastructure, getting towards the end of it, just paving, things like that, need to be budgeted for. Overall, I just want to mention that improve accessibility. There are locations here where there aren't very good accessible routes from parking to the ball field facilities, right? So without getting into the nitty gritty, I'd say that's one big push, is to fix those kind of little site-specific issues where there's no pedestrian ramp, or there's not accessible parking, or there's tripping hazards, things like that. Just to improve the function right now and safety. Midterm, some larger improvements, enlarging the soccer field. It's actually a little undersized right now for regulation. And because this area is still built out and things are tight, that actually requires, as Darren knows, some pretty big infrastructure changes, moving, retaining walls, things like that. So as we, and Matt will get this later, but as we start to list out these recommendations later, we will assign kind of planning level costs to all these specific improvement projects for budgeting purposes. Another one here is, this is about, improving that connectivity between trail loops, adding a boardwalk, both along the creek at the north side of the wetland there, and on the east side of the wetland, to really connect kind of the east and western parts of the park and north to south. And then, how and where can we squeeze a little more off-street parking into the park without losing some of the recreation amenities? So we've looked at, a little bit more parking potentially between the driveway to Public Works there. A couple other parking expansions here and there. So those are the big ones. I guess, I think we have a long-term.
Yep.
Further down the road, maybe some larger improvements to the concourses, these paved areas that connect the ball fields. There's drainage issues, there's paving issues, there's sort of lack of seating and not the most comfortable spaces to sit and watch a game. So what can be done there over time to improve those and kind of match some of the expectations and quality facilities that these leagues might be using at other regional facilities too, right? Updating and replacing buildings, concession, storage. There's a handful of buildings in different ages out here, but trying to plan for longer term replacement of those. And then renovate and possibly enlarge the playground, which is, I would say, in the last sort of third of its life as play equipment goes, generally. So keeping that important function here, but maybe expanding that and bringing more folks to this area just to play.
And I'd like to note quick that we are doing some improvements to the main concession in the middle of the ball pinwheel here this year. But those are substantial improvements, but in terms of actual long-term, eventually replacing that building, having that identified through this master planning process, even though that concession stand is going to be nice and updated and modern over the next few years.
And it is defined in the document, but short, mid, and long term, we're saying kind of 1 to 5 year time period, 6 to 10, 11 plus, basically 11 to 15, 11 to 20, kind of a 15 to 20 year lifespan on this document.
Yep.
Why don't you go to the area two?
So north of the tracks.
North of the tracks, which I think for some visitors, maybe don't even know it's there, right? If they're coming only off Nantucket Boulevard. This is really about kind of formalizing, improving upon what's there already. So we're not proposing any major kind of program changes or new uses, but short-term improving, kind of formalizing some of the off-street parking. There's a handful of stalls off a residential street up at the northwest corner. Improving, the entry signage, restroom, expanded parking, kind of enhancing the wayfinding signage throughout the whole park. We look at that in every place because it is such a comprehensive network of trails, and people need to know how to navigate who aren't familiar.
That particular recommendation comes up as short-term for all these areas. It's general park-wide.
Midterm, this is an interesting one. Some of you may be aware that there is a primary trail that does run under the railroad bridge along the creek, and that's the only connection to the south part of the park. But in flood conditions, that's under a foot of water, pretty typically. So one idea was just to create a loop for folks with another boardwalk extension along the creek there through the wetland. Creates another new feature to attract people as part of the park. They don't have to sort of come to a dead end and turn around. Changes that experience a little bit. So it basically extends the use of this during that flood condition in some ways.
I'd also like to note that in the post plan, it is one of the key priorities to include more boardwalks in our wetlands. Unfortunately, a lot of our park system is wetland, which is often inaccessible in terms of trails and other amenities. So installing more boardwalks through these wetlands allows people to get close to the creek in this area and offers a bit of a loop, like Eric was describing.
Do you just want to speak to the challenge or the restrictions around why we can't just fix the flooding area because of the railroad?
Yeah, so the creek has a dedicated elevation, and we can't restrict creek flow in any way. So we can't raise that pathway through there that cuts underneath that trestle bridge. We also can't change the elevation of the railroad bridge. We don't have authority over that particular corridor. So we're really stuck in a box, the culvert, actually, the trestle bridge, where we can't add fill under there to raise the pathway up, and we can't raise the bridge itself. So we're somewhat stuck. It's unfortunately a dead end for 3-4 months a year, depending on creek conditions.
We did a project about 10 years to raise it as much as we could, but still get snow equipment underneath it. We could have raised it maybe a little bit more where you could walk under it, but then we wouldn't have been able to plow it. So we had to find the balance to be able to still plow the trail and get the trail as high as we could, but still get equipment under.
So this solution is more, it doesn't solve that problem, it just makes Area 2 more usable.
Yes, so it gives you an option. Rather than, if you lived on the north side, coming to a dead end and breaking the law and climbing over the tracks like you're not supposed to, but a lot of people do, to at least be able to make this loop and circle your way back up. Plus the experience of the wetland and the board itself, yes.
Lastly here, I'll say long-term, looking at kind of formalizing. There's a existing footpath, I'll call it, kind of informal trail along the north edge of the park there that connects to the St. Albans Mill apartment entrance. We know that those folks do like to walk into the park, so turning that into more of the standard primary, larger trail, more accessible.
So acknowledging when these cow paths form over time. Folks are coming into the park here, we know it for a fact, let's make it safe and stable and recognize it as one of our primary trails. Area 3.
Area 3, so this is kind of the middle portion of the park with the creek meandering through the middle. Have a mix of these wooded uplands and wetland complexes down by the creek, rolling hills. One thing that's interesting for those of you that are familiar, a lot of this portion of the park, especially south of the creek, were previously residential lots that were acquired or donated over the years to the city. So it has sort of more of this open character. There's, old remnants of, I think there's an old chimney, there's some old remnants around.
Barbecue
Um,
pit thing.
Yeah. And so one thing that we talked about is kind of a way to expand use in this area and still be sort of environmentally sensitive to it is formalizing picnicking. So I guess that's the longer term, but in the short term, we're still looking at ways to improve and enhance that trail connectivity. There's an existing pedestrian bridge that unfortunately the slopes leading up to it are very steep.
Yep.
And so we've looked at relocating that and regrading that to create a little bit more accessible creek crossing north to south. Extending the kind of formal trail along the creek east-west, which doesn't really exist right now. There's some informal trails, but sizing this up to be the 8 foot asphalt or crushed rock trail. And then down in the lower right corner, there is an existing off-street parking lot here, but we're looking at kind of repaving and formalizing that, adding at least a portable restroom, the screen enclosure, and then further down the road, if we go to, do we have a slide with the midterm on this one?
Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
Like I mentioned, kind of developing some reservable picnic shelters, which is something that we don't really have in this park, especially not in this area. So again, we're trying to distribute some of these uses around the park. We're in conjunction with that looking at adding another off-street parking lot down in the center bottom of the image there. That could serve, with a four-season restroom. That could serve a couple picnic shelters close by. Further down the road, maybe a couple more picnic shelters could be, installed, and those could be reservable for larger, small groups.
So this again references the post plan. Through our surveying in the post plan, we do have, for instance, a reservable picnic shelter at Lone Lake Park. And it needs some love, but it is highly used. That post plan identified the need for more reservable picnic shelters. So your family reunion, your outdoor party. We have some precedent images of what we think would be appropriate types of architecture. These are meant to be, fit in the landscape, placed appropriately, not building for building's sake. And if we were going to do reservable picnic, then you would need accessible parking nearby. So those two sort of go together. You kind of need one without the other. You couldn't do a picnic shelter without parking somewhat nearby.
And are the little
restrooms.
brown rectangles, are those the shelters?
Yep, that's
Okay.
just some very high-level concept design. How many would be appropriate? What's the appropriate spacing? How many would each accommodate in terms of picnic tables and grills or whatever? Party size, that would be part of the more detailed planning if this was moved forward out of this master plan process.
And it's maybe worth noting that at Lone Lake, we lost a picnic shelter
Yep.
when pickleball went in, and pickleball demands a lot of that parking space now, so that's,
Yep.
Is there a trail currently that starts at P1 and goes north?
informal.
Oh,
Yeah.
at the top there.
There's an informal one. No, down at the bottom.
I see.
You're talking at the
Oh,
bottom?
down here. So that's one of the old driveways.
Yeah.
So what we end up getting is people, this parking lot, the existing parking lot overflows, and you'll see people parking along the street here. And then that isn't really a formal entrance beyond it being a remnant parking or driveway from
it where
one of
the
old
pillars
houses.
are?
Yes, there's
Okay.
pillars. There's pillars, there's actually two driveways, one where the parking lot is shown here, and then one on this east side of this wetland.
Okay.
For people not familiar, it's a little tricky on this one because your yellow lines show your new, improved, what we would call primary trails these days. But the
Yep.
primary trails are a little harder to tell for people that aren't familiar. You might want to trace.
Sure. Yeah, this one over here is
Yeah.
a primary trail. Yes, so making that distinction a little clearer.
And then over from the other parking lot on the right.
Yeah, over here.
Because that one looks the same size.
Yep,
as
that's
the-
true. This is a
That should be a bigger
significant
line.
primary trail through here. Yep. Yep, and we, throughout this process, have been making this distinction between our primary trails and the informal footpaths and making sure they preserve those characteristics.
Lastly on this, again, looking at the possibility of another bridge crossing at some point to kind of, again, kind of increase the density of this loop system, have a trail crossing at that north-south point there in line with these reservable shelters and new parking lot. We also have looked at kind of ways to improve the creek access in that area. So I can see this new parking lot at the south also doubling as a trailhead for water trail users if someone wants to bring their kayak out. There's an old dock that's worked itself out of the ground and sits about 3 feet above normal water level, and so it's not usable anymore. So, kind of redoing a water access there.
How far is that from Minnetonka Boulevard and the parking?
Good question. That's probably, I don't know, 200 yards.
Yeah, 200 yards maybe. Say 400 or 500 feet.
So it's a walk. It's
Is it
how
a
many?
ways to carry
how
a
many?
heavy boat?
What do they call it? Rods?
Yeah.
How many rods?
Divided by 16. I'll get back to
12
you.
rods. So yes, a bridge crossing is a big idea, right? Big ideas need to start in this document. This would take a lot in terms of permitting.
I'm not sold on the dock.
Maybe we should hold off on.
Sorry, I'll restrain myself.
I have a lot of questions too.
We'll brace ourselves. Next, Area 4.
Area 4. So the furthest west, I would say portion of the park, although actually right now, part of the land that you're seeing in sort of green here, the blue boundary,
This area.
is not formally part of Big Willow Park. Part of it is the existing Mills Landing Park, which sounds like a water access point, even though it's not.
There are some old walls back
Yep.
between the parking lot and the creek there, so it may have actually been a landing at some point. It's
It
very
is.
steep,
That's the
yeah.
issue. Yep, that's the
There's
issue.
old timber walls up in there,
But an idea that this plan puts forth is kind of incorporating that piece of that little small park piece into Big Willow Park, connecting it through here along with some of the recent private property acquisition that's happened right there. Piecing this all together as one continuous park land, which allows us to run these trails through, looking at expanding the parking that's there now, formalizing that a little bit more, having another four-season restroom, with a dog park associated, fenced off-leash dog park.
Yep. So, dog park, off-leash dog park. So a little background on the dog park. So this was a post-plan priority initiative, was to study areas throughout our park system to identify locations for dog parks. Through the Purgatory Park Master Plan, as you're all familiar, we began a citywide discussion about off-leash dogs in the city. Through that process, a Minnetonka off-leash dog strategy and guidance plan was created with the help of a community work group. This happened last winter. That community work group developed criteria to find the sort of the right characteristics of a potential dog park. We looked at, through that community work group process, a sort of a more woody, trails in the woods style dog park, and what we're calling suburban or urban style fenced dog parks. So they created, through that work group, a variety of criteria, and then the city council, it was presented to the park board back in April of last year, and that strategy was adopted by the city council on May 5th. So in that document, you'll see a high-level criteria of what would make for a good dog park, and it listed some parks that we would be studying through the master plan process in the future and considering those as options for dog parks in the future. Well, we're now at that point. So having this, there's some benefits to this location and there's some drawbacks. So the benefits are, there is existing parking there. It is at a key hub in the community with a lot of traffic nearby. It's generally accessible. There is ADA parking and a restroom opportunity in this location. It's generally centrally located in the city. It is, as drawn here, this light green area is about an acre and a half or so, which all fits in the criteria of the community work group's ideal characteristics. Some concerns. The plant community is not extremely diverse here, but there are some nice oaks, but it's a lot of buckthorn, so it's not what we'd consider a high quality ecosystem, but it does have some nice oaks in that area. But it is right adjacent to Minnehaha Creek, so there are some concerns about it being so close to the creek. And as shown, it is within about 100 feet of neighboring properties, which were identified through the community work group as something to consider during this process.
Because
So-
the houses are on the other side of
Yep,
the
so,
creek?
the city owns a couple lots here, which are, again, are not part of Big Willow, but then there are residential houses. This is Burwell Drive through here. This is a cul-de-sac. There's residential houses just on the north side of the creek, both east and west of this proposed area. So, a little bit of background of why the off-leash dog area is in this version of the plan at this point.
And do you want, at some point, do you want to talk about why it was cut off there instead of, why it's placed exactly where it is?
So
and
the
blah, blah?
logic of the placement is to create a little bit more room for some additional parking. So this is, again, a high-level master plan version of this. There would be a lot more, if this was pushed forward, there would be a lot more design that goes into this. But the logic was additional parking, and then there is wetland here. So there is a driveway to the home that's still there, but the city owns now. So it's sort of an awkward cutoff to the east because there is significant wetland through that area.
Okay.
But again, it would require significant design to figure it out further.
Yep.
So midterm, long-term for this area, Eric?
Yeah, so that really looks more at, again, extending these trail loops. So Matt mentioned that the city actually owns 3 lots across the creek to the north there, and they're undeveloped right now. So we saw that as an opportunity to extend a trail up across there. It almost aligns with an existing trailhead. So a short walk on the street would sort of connect that loop for users. And as we know, we have a lot of people walking from that neighborhood into the park. Of course, extending the trail north would mean another bridge crossing. So, this plan does look at, again, kind of rebuilding the one existing bridge and adding 2 more. I think there's a lot of logic to having that happen here. The land available, the grades. That I want to call attention to that long term. So that brown dashed line to the west of the park, which is around this sort of commercial strip, we're just saying, there's an opportunity to think about future development, redevelopment of that area, how some of these greenway and park amenities could maybe continue along the creek and connect over to Minnetonka Mills Park. At that point, this becomes a little bit more of a hub, right, for whatever redevelopment could happen there as well, potentially.
And I would like to point out there's a bit of an error in the drawing here. Property lines are here. So these residential folks, they own to the pavement edge here. So this dashed line, they do cross the creek. Yep, they cross the creek. So we meant to just say this area, but really we should have been more clear that these residential parcels continue to right at the edge of pavement back here. So we can update that for a little more clarity there. Okay, a little bit, I touched on this briefly, design standards. So there are some images in the document to sort of get at some of the architectural concepts that we think would make sense if we were to move ahead with park shelters, some ideas for the boardwalk. There's a lot of detailing in there that showcases how we like to install trails for stability, for clearance, for maintenance, those sorts of things. So a lot of that is almost cut and paste from our previous master plans at this point, but really we like to have it as part of a living document moving forward. Those help us with the overall cost estimation. So the final items that get included in this plan can have a dialed in cost a little bit more. You'll see in the second half of the document, there's a recommendations matrix. So this is more about implementation. You'll see a variety of columns describing each element. That number code system on the far left relates back to the figures, so they have sort of a coding system so you can find it. This is very high-level draft at this point. Based on feedback we're getting from you folks, these could be removed entirely. And then we have to consider the prioritization. Where does it make sense? Are these big dreaming ideas down the line, or are these things we feel need improvement closer to the present than out into the distant future? And then we like to highlight the associated guiding principles for each one of these elements to sort of give them weight. So overall, next steps. This is just the draft master plan. This has been published on Minnetonka Matters for feedback, and we're already receiving feedback. I'm getting plenty of calls. All the comments will be compiled for review as part of the evolution of this document. The final master plan would be updated based on your feedback tonight. It'll be finalized later this spring and represented back to you folks. And then, depending on your recommendation, it would eventually go to City Council for adoption in the summer or so of this year. So, with that, we're ready to take some questions and hear some feedback.
Yeah, and what I'd like, we have people I think want to talk. We'll have the park board make comments or questions first, and then open it up for people who want to make public comments. And then, depending on if there's still interest, we could come back to the park board for further comment. So with that, any park board folks with questions or comments for Matt or Eric?
Sure.
Okay.
Regarding having
Let's try this too.
okay.
If it works, let's try and do area by area. Would that make it easier too?
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. To think about that. I'm not ready to talk about
I'll
one, so
just
go
make
ahead.
a high-level comment.
Sure.
I thought you did a fantastic job soliciting community input. I think the recommendations do a good job of addressing the highest priority challenges, and dreaming up new cool things that could be added to the park. That's great. I assume you're looking for area by area input tonight? Okay. There's no vote tonight, it's just feedback.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
feedback,
Okay.
but these are things that the consultant is here
Yep.
to receive. You know, ideally, we're getting as much necessary changes to the document through this conversation.
Yep, and I appreciate all the link backs to the plan and the natural resources plan to ensure we're developing a healthy overall park system. So,
Agreed.
Thanks.
Yep.
So any comments or questions on area one?
Yeah, I have one sort of comment or question. It seems that extending that soccer field is a pretty heavy lift and probably very necessary so that, you know, communities and soccer clubs and whatnot can use that area. I'm wondering if there was any consideration, or if there might be any consideration of other athletic uses in the park right now, just because there's already going to be a lot of work put into that spot. You know, are there community groups that were consulted about other sports, other things that could happen on such a large and being expanded open space?
Sure. Well, we did reach out to our sports communities through our recreation, and these are well-used fields. So we didn't necessarily get a lot of ask for changing the programming on these particular fields, knowing that they are well-reserved and well-used by the community. So at this point, we didn't recommend any changes beyond making it a regulation-size soccer field.
How much bigger? Was it length, width, both?
Both. I think.
Primarily the width, and I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but if you're familiar, you know, there's an existing asphalt trail just to the east of that, kind of runs on the slope. So we're looking at kind of, extending the field itself. I want to say it was almost 15 feet or something to the east, and then having to have a couple of stepped walls there to still keep a path along there, and so it gets a little tighter.
There would be
But
some
it-
tree removal likely. There's a big, beautiful silver maple here that would likely be impacted. Additional concerns, not just pushing it out this way, how close the seat wall is to the sidelines over here, and that there is asphalt there. I've been at games where that's a bit problematic, that there's not a lot of runoff or room for the referees.
But is there, you're not anticipating removing all those retaining walls? to the
No,
west?
no, everybody loves those retaining walls.
So it'll be just trying to fit it to the east?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
And
Right.
in our recommendations, it's repairing and replacing that wall.
Okay.
That we acknowledge that works well.
Yeah, Caleb?
So I see that it's a medium term, but this soccer space, but I also am wondering if it's consistently booked. Why is it a medium term? And also, as opposed to a long term? And then also, what's the potential benefit, given that it's consistently booked,
Yeah.
from it being regulation?
Yeah. I might have to defer to Kelly a little bit on the amount of the bookings, and would enlarging it, if it's already full, do we need to enlarge it is the question.
Definitely. I mean, most of our fields are booked at capacity, especially soccer, baseball, softball are very booked. I think some of the things that we put on there, we put youth sports on there too. So if you make a field bigger, we can divide that into smaller fields, so it gives you more options for more kids to play. So yes, it gives you regulation where you could maybe have other teams that aren't currently using it, but it also gives you just more space in general for multiple teams and multiple fields within a big field.
Have we ever had to turn down a tournament or a game, or not a game would be too small, but because the size isn't regulation?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, just curious.
And I do walk here daily in the summertime, and there are leagues. I see the rec co-ed, but having a son who played competitively, I'm not seeing those teams out here.
Okay,
So I think
that's
that,
helpful.
so I think by making it regulation size, you might have more, and soccer fields are in high demand right now. So I think it's a great addition.
It is one of our lit fields too, which adds
Oh, that's
use
right.
certainly
Yeah.
on those warmer spring and fall nights.
Ann?
I noticed that replacing turf with native plants to minimize mowing and that kind of stuff was put as a long-term, and I would suggest that if we're going to be ripping stuff up anyway,
Sure.
that we take the opportunity to seed or plant or whatever,
Yep.
just to get as many natives in as soon as
Good idea.
possible.
Yep. No, it makes sense. We want to be thoughtful about when we do it, and that we follow up and get that establishment of those areas. And but there's lots of opportunity there. Yeah, we can move that up.
And I think it's unfortunate with the trees, because I do enjoy watching all the kids playing in the trees.
Yes.
Especially the one by the sidewalk, if anyone has seen it. It's some kind of a pine, and it's got like arms and branches, and usually you see kids pretty much hanging out of it.
Yep.
So something like that would be really desirable.
Well, I've got another one on one if no one else does. Just, you don't have to go back to it, but, and maybe it's all little green blotches, but the very first slide you had of the area, you had the safety, ADA safety issues
Yep.
and erosion issues.
Yep.
And that play area is just dominated by all those little nasty blue and yellow things. Is it that bad? I mean, it looks like a war zone there.
Yes, we talked about that internally. It's a little dramatic. There are some more troublesome concerns where sidewalk heaves, for instance. So a route comes through and there's a sidewalk heaving. So officially it would be considered a trip hazard. But those are things that we manage and maintain actively. Every year we're going out.
So that's not part of the master plan, it's just fixing it now?
Yep. It's
Or
while
whatever.
going through this process, we can inventory
Okay.
all that.
Okay, great.
And a lot of that is handled in through our maintenance crews.
Okay, thank you.
And I think part of the way to think about it is that, these paved areas in the baseball pinwheel and up in softball fields, it's if and when there's a larger investment in those, what can be done to avoid these problems in the future? Because there is a lot of Band-Aid work that needs to happen in those.
Great, thanks.
This is a broader question having to do with the boardwalks, and it's really sort of relevant to not only Area 1 but throughout. I just have a question as to what are the environmental sort of concerns that you have to look at when you're building a boardwalk in terms of water quality, degradation of the existing wetland, habitat destruction. What's the trade-off between that and the actual boardwalk?
Sure. Great question.
Yeah, so I can take that, Chair and Park Board members. So our city ordinance does allow for boardwalks to be constructed in wetlands. It's not considered a really significant impact. Most of these wetlands are primarily cattails or reed canary grass, which are, frankly, are invasive species. So they're not, from a species perspective, it's not that big of an impact.
Not the cattails.
Well,
Cattails are invasive.
most of the cattails we have are
There's
invasive.
a native one and a non-native, and
Yes, most of our cattails are considered invasive. As long as you're maintaining the flow of the water, which usually happens because these boardwalks are elevated, it's not that big of an issue. You're shading out some of the vegetation underneath, but to be honest, it's not. It would be much more impactful if the trail were actually on the wetland than above the wetland. You still are going to get some growth underneath it. You're not impeding water flow, so that's the most important thing when it comes to wetlands. Frankly, I think we often feel getting people out to experience the wetlands outweighs any of the small impacts that you would see from it.
There's been recent technology too, where rather than burying big footings, they do what's called helical piers, these big screws that they drive in the ground that don't disturb a lot of soil or compact the soil in the wetlands that minimize disturbance. There's timings of installation that help minimize those type of disturbance. And then it offers us an opportunity to do restoration around those areas as well.
Great, thank you.
And that's something that also does get addressed in that design standards section, which kind of sets some of those considerations, and there's some references even there to some sustainable trail guidelines and kind of best practices for designing and installing wetlands or boardwalks and wetlands. So, yeah, if you're curious, take a look at that too.
I'm very excited about. I forgot that was in Area 1, so I'm glad you pointed that out, because to me the boardwalks are a great addition. I remember back when there was the boardwalk that crossed the, I'll call it the pond.
Yep.
And it was just always interesting to kind of go across that and be in the environment, if you will. And it also is helpful if people want to avoid going down the hill. Correct. The steep asphalt hill.
So rather than coming down here,
yeah.
being able to circuit through here, correct?
Yeah, and it kind of creates in a non-game time another parking opportunity, because you can park up there and create loops down into the the traditional walking paths and stuff. So I think that's pretty exciting.
I think people who've never driven back there don't probably know that all that parking exists.
Yep.
I didn't. I have to admit.
Yep, a lot there.
Yeah.
Area 2?
On the entry parking, can you describe more what the vision is for that S.1.1?
So S1.1 is some drive paving replacement and improvement that I think you guys have that scheduled for.
Yeah, in the near future. So
Okay.
right now it's one lane in, one lane out. We would widen it so you have a right turn lane and a left
Oh,
leaving
good.
the park, and then one lane for coming in. So make it a little easier for traffic to get out.
And we have a lot of trucks and residents for the brush drop-off coming in and out of that entrance too. So.
Yeah.
And then
Good for me.
adjacent to that, improving that existing parking lot by the playground, which kind of is the front door, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, repaving that with concrete curb and gutter and pedestrian ramps and, perimeter plantings. And I think there's even probably the ability to squeeze a few more stalls in there and just make it work a little bit better with the playground space too. So,
Katie?
One more high-level comment before we go to Area 2. So I'm finding it challenging to give feedback without any cost estimates yet, because they all seem like great ideas when they're free, or when they're all equivalent.
Yep.
Will that come in the next round?
That's the
that we see?
plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So that does take some effort. So measuring trail distances and all this stuff. So the thought was lock in the big ideas, and then in the next version have better estimations.
Right.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we usually do a cost range on those anyway. This is the planning level cost. So
Long-term things that we're saying might happen in 20 years. Who knows what materials will cost at that point.
Area 2.
North of the tracks.
Well, I guess I'll start off. Again, I think the boardwalk through the wetlands there is great for the looping purpose, because I've done that out and back several times, although I do occasionally cross the railroad tracks. But I'm just curious, on Area 3, you show an awful lot of the informal trails that are up in the hill, but here you don't show the informal trails right where your pointer was.
Back in here. Yeah, there is the old mill earthwork back there, and there's some mountain biking trails that we see pop up every now and again that we get some complaints about. But yeah, there are some trails in there that we could identify key primary ones that we'd want to
Or
sanction,
they're
I guess.
informal, but because they're as significant
Informal,
as
yes.
that little teeny loop up there, just up a little more to the right.
Yeah,
that one,
this here.
yeah, they're the same
Yep.
width and all of that.
That's true.
Okay.
And yeah, this is a big area of park. We know there's trails in here.
Yeah.
People are going to go through there, so we should sanction some of those.
Yeah.
Yep. We have all that mapped out too.
Katie? No? Okay. So I go to Area 3.
Well, I'll
Ann?
continue on with my little rant
Yeah.
about the landing for the canoes or water things. When I've canoed down the creek, I've gotten out at Burwell School or in Edina. This doesn't seem to me very convenient. It's far from, if you've got a heavy canoe, you're not taking your nice fiberglass 70-pound canoe down the creek, probably 35-pound canoe down the creek. You're taking something heavy and that can hit stuff. So I would just take out the landing personally. But
So with that note, we do describe it as a landing, but I think some of the intention there is creek access. So we know that children want to get in the creek.
okay.
People want to experience the creek. When I helped design the Burwell House gardens, we put in some stones that sort of step down towards the creek, and I always see people standing out there taking pictures. So the idea is to
Open the creek up.
stabilize some access, whether or not you're lifting a canoe in and out, your kids are maybe splashing around when the water's flowing.
And if you have the picnic structures, people could canoe to the picnic.
Yeah.
And we
that's
know people are going to get to the water, so
Yeah.
we design and stabilize it in a way that says here's the best spot for that.
true. Okay. I just wouldn't sell it as a semantics. Okay, and then is the idea to have both the parking at the far right and the one in the middle long-term? That seems like we have parking over on section 1. We've got 2 parking lots here and another one in 4 and one up in 3.
Really, this parking is related to whether or not we want to do reservable picnic shelters. If we want to do reservable picnic shelters, these parking lots, even this, are too far away.
And too
Wait,
small.
which one?
So the existing one over here,
Right,
and then the Mills Landing
Yes.
one, which has no trail connection currently through
Yes.
it. So if we were interested in reservable community picnic shelters, we would need some parking nearby. The appropriate amount of stalls and those sorts of things would need to be designed.
okay. So I'm just wondering if then could we decommission the one on the far?
This one?
Is it needed?
Well, it's real popular.
Yeah,
and it's sort of the
don't do
trailhead.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you. These are expensive bits of infrastructure. They're impervious surfaces. They're extra built things. So we have to make a good case of why we would use them.
The 3.1 is also, does that have the four-season restroom?
That would,
Yes.
yes.
So the way I would suggest that when we look at that part of Area 3, we look at the picnic structures as part of the investment, because if you don't have the picnic structures, you don't need the parking, you don't need the four-season. So you need to look at that as, do we want to spend that much money for picnic structures? That's
Yep.
what's driving
Yes.
the other.
Yeah.
That's just a suggestion to think of it that way.
Makes sense.
Caleb?
So I was looking at S3.1, which is the replace and realign the existing bridge to achieve accessible trail grades.
Yep.
And then, of course, that impacts S3.2, which here is described as a project whereby there's gravel added to a primary trail to improve connectivity and stabilize the shoreline PRN as necessary. And then, of course, we have a existing trail in bold white, I guess, on the other side of the bridge that I'm going to ask is, would that be also ensured to be kind of accessible product terrain, covering? And in general, could you help me understand better what it would take or what it might look like after the S3.1 is the work is done?
Yep. So the issue with S3.1 is it's high off the creek to allow for flow, and it's sort of beautiful that way. But that creates these really steep slopes on each side. So there would be significant grading around those bridge abutments to pull that grade out so it'd be softer, essentially. So there would be additional fill, and those abutment slopes would be pulled out in either direction to soften them. So there would be, but the goal would be ADA accessibility if we could manage it, which is a 12-to-1 slope, which ends up still feeling pretty steep, but certainly not as steep as it is out there now. Part of the challenge with accessibility is how snow and ice builds up, and it's hard for our crews to stay on top of it. It gets walked so frequently that snow gets packed down immediately, and then we have a difficult time getting it off. So those grades and how much of that is potentially paved to allow us to scrape it and clean it better, that would be part of that design process. And yes, the trail on the north side of the creek through here is a fairly level grade. I don't think we
Till you
need to
get to-
augment that much at all.
Till you get to the north-south
Yeah,
part of it.
so it makes that bend. It goes up a hill there a little bit, right
Right.
above
Yep.
T2.
Yes, yeah.
That's what, that area is paved because it's
Yeah.
a little steeper, so
Yeah.
we had washout problems, so that section is paved.
Yep.
I think to avoid you can see how many topo lines it crosses.
Yep.
You could go around the bottom in the mucky part, maybe.
Down here, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, so there is a footpath through there. There is even a bench with a
Yep.
swing over the creek.
Rope.
Yeah. You see how eroded those shoreline get over time?
Yeah,
so-
that'd be hard.
stabilizing it and being thoughtful about that where necessary.
Well, as Jennifer pointed out several meetings ago, 3.1 has to happen because you can't get, even an able-bodied person with grippers on their shoes, if it's icy, has a challenge going up and over that arc. Your 3.2 yellow line is really just making the existing, because that's a pretty good sized path now, but it's making it better.
Yes. My concern there, so you see the way the creek bends here? The creek wants to eat that slope, right? So the more foot traffic we get on there, there are some memorial benches that are now oddly perched up because there's a significant amount of erosion there. So looking at that really carefully in terms of the appropriate width and stability of that trail, Eric might have mentioned that it would be, ideally 8 feet wide. I don't think that's ultimately practical through a lot of that slope in there. I don't know that we'd be able to get it that wide without significant impacts to the trees through there. But stabilizing it to make sure that human foot traffic isn't eroding that slope into the creek.
And my other personal plug would be, you have in some of these, you show interpretive sign positionings and stuff. I would really put a plug in for the interpretive sign on the homestead just above the parking lot, because that, unless you're going to knock down all those the brick pillars and the footings, it begs, what is this thing? What was
really
this?
Cool. Yep.
It's a cool spot.
That's why we like to showcase the historic aerials in the document to show that house was there. And you get a lot of questions. I love stumbling upon old remnants of that sort of thing in the woods. It tells a story from the past.
There was some information in the design guidelines about the bridges. I didn't really, maybe I didn't get to the right part, but would there be enough headroom so that you can actually get a canoe with humans in it underneath?
That would be an absolute necessity. When we would have to permit that project with the watershed district, I would imagine we'd need a permit for that. Flood, making sure that any new bridge abutments couldn't restrict flooding at all. That's a big red flag. But that allows for lots of bounce in that creek. You see how much change it happens when they open the dam. So, making sure.
I can remember going through some culvert where we had to lie down to get through.
That was in a different town than that.
Yeah, that was in Diner Park. St. Louis Park.
I think it was not Minnetonka. Okay. All right, I'm done.
I'd like to say that I really like the second crossing. I think it's nice to have new use areas further out, and again, it's a very condensed in the ball fields and the play area and the soccer field. So this is kind of a nice new user group. We'll have to look at the cost-benefit analysis of the picnic shelters and what kind of revenue they could bring in to offset some of those. But, I'd love to put my kayaks in and trying to find a good spot. And to me, carrying a kayak, that distance wouldn't be a big deal. So I hear what you're saying with a canoe, certainly. But my little 9-foot kayaks, this would be a really nice amenity as another access to get on. Because I always see people going as I'm standing on that bridge going down, like, I want to be one of you guys. I want to go down with it. But it was like trying to find where do I put in and seeing that this is like an authorized public land might encourage users like us.
Best place is right here.
No, I haven't.
The spot right down
You
by
have
the
to
water.
show me.
Oh, it's right at the end of the road, where the Woodbridge here, right going to Brad's house,
Oh,
probably.
you know what? I do know that.
Yeah, that's because you short walk.
Yeah, you're right. I do know about that, but I want one closer to home.
Okay.
And something that I don't know if we've communicated very well today, but I think hopefully comes through in the document is, 3.2, 3.3, another bridge at 3.1, or L 3.1, I should say, potentially. Any of that stuff, it's about kind of recognizing and formalizing, recognizing the creek as a recreational resource here. There's a lot of erosion issues right on this spot, and a lot of that's because it is just these sort of bare slopes where people want to get down to the water. They're scrambling up and down. So some of this, we even describe, some stone block terracing and things like that, create places to climb, play, sit. And if there's ways to integrate an easy way in and out of the water there for wading or a kayak, I think that's kind of more what we're looking at. And so we can maybe tweak our language a little bit to hammer some of that home.
I have one last question. The very top end of that map, you don't show I'll call it a trail, the trail that goes right along the railroad tracks on the north side. Is that because it's in a right-of-way and it's not supposed to be there, or because it's only like 8 feet wide and you could drive a truck down it? And that creates the loop that allows you to go make a circle around the top. Is that intentionally?
I think it's an oversight, Dave.
Okay, so you can put that back in.
Yeah.
But
That would be good to show.
And something that those P1 and P2, there's a few of these spots where we've talked about implementing some new signage to try and deter people from crossing the tracks.
Yeah.
Both in this part and actually all areas.
But that
1,
trail's
2, and
really prominent, and it loops down right behind your key.
What everybody does is they'll turn here and go this way.
Yep.
Yep, we should be showing that.
Yeah, okay. That'd be great. Other comments on 3 before we get to the really good one?
I think signs will probably, there are already signs. It's pretty easy to look away. So I think that the answer is to make it user-friendly to do something else than walk across the tracks. So
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not sure what else to do that we've already not, beyond what we've done. But you have to make it easy for people to do the correct thing. Easy and pleasant.
Yep.
A mural underneath the railroad bridge.
Graffiti down there. I'm sure there's some already.
Well, I was thinking of tiles or something. I don't know.
Well, I think the challenge is for some years it's 2+ months where that's flooded. And in that time of year, it's going to be nice to be able to do loops on the north side, but you're still going to have people go, I want to extend my walk. So,
Can I ask, was there any sort of consideration for what the next best legal route is from that north area into the main park?
We're really limited by the condition of the track there, how elevated it is, and the one crossing. Are you suggesting some sort of bridge or some other crossing?
I'm just wondering if there was sort of consideration of like formalizing a next best route, but maybe there is not one.
There isn't one.
The Railroad Authority really has very strong authority over this. They wouldn't entertain anything like that.
And a bridge over, there's one down in Burnsville sort of area that you have to go up pretty high.
long way.
Really high to walk over. It would.
Oh, yeah.
definitely wouldn't be accessible.
You have the loose line as well, that's really high.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
it could be done. It would be expensive, and it'd be a lot easier to cheat and run across the tracks. But you didn't hear me say that.
It's not on record.
Okay, Area 4 then.
So in the interest of, I'll just leap in, if I may. In the interest of saving some money, we could somehow encourage people to walk by all these nice local businesses and spend some money, and then cross at Bridge Street and walk down Burwell Drive.
To get to enter this park entrance.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. This is existing.
Because that's what we used to do in the old days.
We recognize that this is a big idea. We were just looking holistically at a loop system.
And
Could we
it's,
manage?
I understand the coolness of it. I also remember in Wet Springs, it's very wet in there.
Back in here, yep. That's why we own these parcels, because I think they're tough to build.
I don't know if you'd need an elevated walkway or, I just don't think it's wet enough for a boardwalk, but it's in that awkward middle stage of
Yep.
mushy.
Yep.
I appreciate that you're looking for other off-leash dog areas. The con that you said that it's 100 feet away from houses seems like a really big con. And I think you have other ideas for other spots that are central that might.
There is
Be
a
better.
list of other park options in that community dog strategy.
Yep.
One, we did say through the master planning of Big Willow, we would consider a location.
And it's worth commenting that this is a very different kind of dog park experience from what we have in Purgatory. It's
Yes, this is the traditional fenced-in, higher traffic, one small dog, one large dog area.
and it couldn't go further east because that's wetlands.
Yes, it is wetland. There's a
Okay.
bit of a ridge and then the house through here, but I don't know that we'd want to neck it down in any weird way, and it really couldn't push out into here.
Okay.
It's very soggy.
Yeah. Ryan.
Just since it is an area so close to local businesses, I'm first wondering if there is any existing area plans, because I think you had earlier mentioned the chance of that area being redeveloped. I wasn't sure if that was formal or just could be. And then also because some of those are food places, was an alternative to having a dog park there, moving picnic areas closer to existing restaurants and food service.
Sure. I'm not aware of a small area plan for this, but we are going through a big conversation about zoning in the city and what we're calling village centers. And this would be one of the village centers in the city. We don't have a downtown, so this is one of them. But I'm not aware of an existing area plan for this. What was your second question?
Yeah, and then I was wondering, just since there were picnic areas offered, but we had had some discussion about if that was the right place for them.
So currently there is, in this little red rectangle here, there is a few picnic tables that people do walk down and use. And then there is gazebo that folks walk across and they sit in that gazebo too. So there is some options to
Show me where the
have your
gazebo
Dairy
is.
Queen cone.
Where's the gazebo?
By Station
The
Pizza.
gazebo is just off the map here,
Yeah.
which is just over Bridge
By
Street.
Oh,
Station
at the
Pizza.
other, okay. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then
Got
there's a few picnic tables on the lawn right here currently. It's right behind between the car wash and the
And the
existing parking
little
lot.
parking lot.
You know,
Okay,
this-
sort of
this-
inconspicuous then.
Matt and I bandied around a lot of ideas for that little commercial strip, small area plan. So, but of course that's kind of above and beyond the scope of park master planning. But that's why I wanted to throw this in here to hopefully get a process started there to think about how those parcels could be redeveloped to kind of better fit within this greenway concept along the creek. I mean, all those businesses right now are, let's see, the parking is on the creek side. And the building frontage is on the busy road, right? With no buffers or anything. I think that whole area could be kind of rethought. So, and I do think that as that, if and how that gets looked at, thinking about how that could affect the layout of these amenities with the parking and the dog park, that should kind of be considered too. Because maybe that's what you're getting at too, is more like, if there's a future, 5-story mixed-use, development with residential, does the dog park move closer to that or something? Those are, you have your planner hat on, I know, but I think those are good questions. So
All the
if
people
you
who
build a
own
dog
those-
park here, how can it fit into a future redevelopment there too, right?
I hope the people who own those businesses' little antennas are up. I mean, to me, that it shouldn't be bandied about quite so blithely, but
Redevelopment.
yeah. I don't know.
Sure.
Just, okay, those have been there for a long time,
Yep.
and there's
Certainly.
sort of
It mostly came
historical.
out of the conversation that, the trail connection right now is at the back of the curb on the north side of Minnetonka Boulevard, basically. So you're right on the street.
Right.
And that's your main connection between these parks on Minnetonka Boulevard.
Yep.
And it's just too bad that that's not on the creek.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was basically what we were talking about.
Yeah, because when you do go down to behind the Dairy Queen to the creek, which I now realize might be someone else's property.
Through here. Yeah.
It's really, my grandkids love to go down there and stand in there while they're eating their Dairy Queens.
Yep.
But I do like in this too, regardless of what all happens, the idea of extending, M42, just extending the path down.
Yep.
Anything you can do to create longer trail runs is a good thing in my mind.
Yep.
So that's a positive.
So regardless of the dog area, we could provide a trail connection to this existing parking lot, so you could walk with your Dairy Queen, not along the sidewalk of Minnetonka Boulevard into the park. And we are planning to demolish that house in this winter.
Other questions or comments on Area 4?
It
Yeah,
kind
Jennifer.
of moves it from Area 4 to the feasibility of it. If we didn't go with the picnic areas, is there enough space or topography for potential moving the dog park in that area?
We had considered that as well. We would need parking if we were going to do a formal off-leash dog area. We would need parking through that area. There's more topography there, and from a ecological perspective, there's a lot of white and bur oaks in that area, which are some of our apex species, and disturbing underneath them is tough.
And that would be a larger area,
It
too.
would be larger. Yeah. We can look into it per park board direction.
So what area are you talking about?
If you could
You go
scroll
back to
over
3.
to area.
That area.
So how much active restoration has been done there?
Well, we've done quite a bit of buckthorn mowing, both east and west directions, and just on this side, along this trail here, there's been significant volunteer efforts over the years. In terms of our goal in Oak Savannah, this lawn through here that could be easily sprayed out and restored into prairie grasses and Oak Savannah habitat fit amongst these potential shelters.
In theory, we could have both. I guess I'm always, I don't want one or the other. I want both kind of a person. I don't know.
Both where?
Well, could we have both looking at a potential dog off-leash area as well as some picnic areas in there?
You mean to compare them?
Or
Or both in the same spot?
in the same vicinity. So,
Oh.
we've got some picnic shelters, that 3L32. Do we need to have, what am I counting, 4 shelters there? 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a fair amount in a close proximity based on my regional park and state park background. But, could 1 or 2 with the dog park? I don't know what the I am seeing a lot of grade there.
There is a lot up and down through here.
Yeah.
This is low. There was a house here and there was a house
Where's the chimney? Over to the left, right there?
here.
Okay. That was
Yeah,
my guess.
I haven't walked in that area a lot because
It's really nice.
because I don't know if it's public or private, so I get kind of funny about
Yeah,
that.
that's- Don't let that stop.
I know
public.
too much. I know too much to not want to do that. So now that I'm seeing this is all public,
There's a lot of
I'll
folks that
feel
walk
free
through
to-
here.
Yeah.
You walk in the snow, you see a lot of tracks.
Yeah.
okay. It'll be my weekend activity. So to get familiar with it, but just throwing it out there, to kind of have that separated use a little bit.
We could study further this area. How could we fit off-leash dogs in this area in favor of picnic or no picnic? Less picnic shelter seems to be what we're hearing. we could certainly redefine this and move off-leash area over here potentially.
I think for me, I want to hear what the public is here and what their concerns are. I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to look at all the comments in the addendum. And so I'm just making assumptions. And so they could be right and they could be off. So I just thought it was worth asking before we open it up to the public feedback.
And
Yeah.
whenever you find it's
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
I'm okay with looking at it, but we had agreed that higher quality habitat was our last choice for where to put a dog park.
Yeah. In the terms of the criteria.
Yep.
Great for
If I could just add, Chair and Park Board, so according to our Natural Resources Master Plan, which I don't have up here, but that area that he's referencing regarding picnic shelters is generally, it's all considered low quality habitat. And then there's turf.
Yeah, turf
areas,
grass here now.
Turf grass areas.
So the only really higher quality is some of those trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at expanding the use around that specific area helps justify the expanded parking in that spot as well.
Yep.
And so just sort of, based on that, I think it's a good area to look into.
Well, I guess if we're commenting that much, I'll throw my 2 cents in on a, and again, I don't know how this works relative to the plan, but as I said earlier, I think you really have to look at this little center part here as an investment around picnicking. You know what I mean? Because you're doing four-season restroom plus the additional parking to support the picnic structures. So you just want to make sure we should be looking at the bundled investment, if you will.
Sure.
This area has actually always been my preference for the additional off-leash dog areas. You kind of know. I think the rolling topography, the openness that already exists is good. It's a larger footprint for that fenced-in off-leash area. So I don't know if that's still a consideration to look at a either-or comparison. If we're really interested in the picnic structures, I think Ryan's idea of maybe the picnic structures move to where the proposed off-leash area is, which is adjacent to two things, the parking plus you could support the local businesses and go over to the picnic, whatever. So I would be open to evaluating that as well. And I think it's a bigger footprint. I think you could expend a little bit to the east and the west there. I do have a question. The bend in the creek higher. Yeah, that's pretty much wetlands, isn't it?
Yeah,
so you really
this
can't
is
use
all open.
No, but on this side of the creek, is that usable or is that wetlands?
There is this like pocket depression here. This must have been an old channel that came through here. So this is real low and shrubby through here.
But if that were to become an off-leash area in that vicinity, that would probably be still not usable?
This would be really tough.
Okay.
I don't know that we could fence this.
That's
in.
what I thought.
This is like upland. You can sort of see the coloration here.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's this upland bit. The rest is pretty soggy.
So that would be my feedback relative to a preferred use, and then you certainly alleviate some of the concerns of homeowners along Burwell Drive,
Maybe.
Burwell Road,
Burwell
Drive.
Caleb.
So perhaps this would be accomplished with the S3.4 kind of upgrades. But I do think the benefit of M3.1, even if it's a later point in time that there's a picnic shelter expansion, is that it would provide parking at M3.1 for people who aren't there in any capacity for sport use. They're there to simply enjoy the nature trails. And even that's a bit of a concern with 3.4, S3.4, is that may be already kind of effectively overflow for sport.
Yep.
So then M3.1 provides effectively a nature-specific trail use kind of parking space. So to me, that would, in my mind, necessitate elevating it.
Elevating 3.1.
Yeah, from like a M to maybe an S. But
Okay.
Then to focus area 4, and this is just a more of a broad idea, I guess. We all, or we know from the Post that places for off-leash dogs is a priority, but I don't know that we want to, try to fit a square peg in a round hole, because there may be other places, other parks that we're going to go through master planning that really do have great, they have terrible space, but they're nowhere near neighbors.
Yep.
Right? And so just because it's slotted in here doesn't necessarily mean that we should think it has to go there, but then we would just keep it elevated. Okay, next master plan, is there a better space? Oh, and in part, maybe you guys are already thinking that ahead of us, because this is what you live and breathe. So you might be able to inform us on the next round of, we heard some of the concerns, here's some other limitations to move it elsewhere within this specific park, but just so you know, we've got some probably really nice opportunities at other centrally or eastern, northern locations.
And I thought I was done, but I had another thought. When I do go to the park, especially in the off seasons, there is a limited restroom opportunities,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, okay, it's going to be embarrassing to say, but can I make it home?
Yeah.
And what are the pit stops? And if, especially if we're after October 15th, I don't know if that's your deadline, but it's about that time. Then I don't have the middle of the play field. So having something within the park for Four Seasons, I guess I wanted to put a plug in for that, regardless if it's at S24 or at M31. Having a Four Seasons, I know it's more maintenance and it's more upkeep, but we need to have that for the hiking trail areas.
There's definitely a need, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it also amazes me that if we can have a, whatever you call it, enclosed porta potty at Roland Road, we ought to be able to have one at 3.4.
Yeah, I would
Because
agree.
I think it gets more use than Roland Road does. So.
Yeah, I agree. So there's a big demand, whether it's portable, but ideally flushable year round. So I wanted to put a plug in for that, regardless of what we end up with.
Got it. Other questions or comments? I have a comment to make before we go to open it up, but anything else? I just wanted to echo what Katie said. I think this master plan is terrific. I think there's a lot of really good ideas. As I said earlier, for those who were on the park board 3 years ago, to me the Purgatory master plan, which was our first park master plan, was really disappointing because it was a single issue plan. It really wasn't a master plan. It was a really great effort, hard effort, but it was around a single issue. And this one, you can clearly see a lot of creativity and a lot of really great ideas around, taking what's already, I think, a exceptional piece of geography park into something that's at a whole nother level, assuming we can afford it and do it. So I wanted to compliment the staff and consultant and everyone on that effort, and kind of see where it goes. So with that, we'll open into public comment, and if the park board wants, we can talk some more after that. But for those that want to, how many people want to comment? So we just know. Okay. So if you can just take turns coming up, and I think you should state your name, and you don't have to do your address anymore, but if you're a resident or not, and if you're what ward you're in, although I think we probably know what ward you're in. So whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
And maybe you should put area 4 up. Area 4 up. I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's around area 4.
Or you could go to
based on reading the addendum.
full park traffic too.
And, hi, I'm Claudia Gunlock.
Put the microphone on, please.
Sure.
No.
There's a button on the top. It's, I've been
Thank
taken
you.
care of, thank you. Okay, I'm Claudia Gunlock. I live on Burwell Drive. I live that say 100 feet from where the,
Okay.
the dog park or the Mills Landing is going in, or Mills Landing is on it. You don't see my house on any of the maps. I'm not sure why that is.
But you're one of these lots that's along the creek?
I'm the lot on the edge of the city property.
Okay, oh, that one, okay.
So I'll try to make it shorter than I wrote. One question I had was, is there still a city plan for the creek to be meandering? At one point, many years ago, there was, the city had wanted to buy up the properties along the creek so that they could allow meandering of the natural flow of the waterway.
I'm not familiar with plans. If there were, they're in the past.
Okay, so I'm gonna I was guessing that just went away at some point when the city spent the money that they'd gotten for buying up green space in Minnetonka. Because I know that was voted on. Most of the residents wanted money spent not necessarily on development of recreation and parks, but just to have green space in the city. That's what I like, so that's my leaning. I kind of looked over this and I felt that there were just a lot of changes. If everything was done, that was just going to be way too much paving and development of Big Willow Park, which my understanding is a Big Willow is a natural preserve.
It's a community park and natural preserve. Most of our community parks
are natural
also preserves.
And I understand that it's not the large, it's a smaller one. And it looks like it just is drawing a lot of development for being a preserve. Now, I'll get to specifically about the dog park. I'm very concerned that an enclosed dog park with a high concentration of predators in an area not more than 60 feet from a creek is going to be very detrimental to the wildness of a creek corridor, because any waterway, any creek is an animal or a wildlife corridor. Animals, birds, mammals, fish, whatever's, do come up from the Mississippi and go to Lake Minnetonka via Minnehaha Creek. It's a pretty, if you live on it, you pretty much know it's an animal highway. So if you set in a lot of, I'm afraid anyway, if you set in a lot of dogs, every day there will be a group of dogs doing dog stuff, barking, having a little noise. Hopefully not, they won't be wild, but it's going to have an impact on the wildlife and the birds that use this creek all the time. Animals like great blue herons and egrets and some of the ducks, wood ducks, deer, they don't like to be around groups of animals. They can tolerate people in the low numbers that they come across in the park, but to kind of have a smell and a presence of animals might be a deterrent for wildlife to use that habitat that they do use now. I noticed in November there was on that Mills Landing, the land on the slope was cleared. And they did start to clear out even the brush and the fallen trees, but that's actually habitat for a lot of animals that you just don't see. I live there, I see them, so just thought I'd inform you guys of that. So I just don't think, I would like to see a study done on whether a dog park is a good idea near wetlands and near the creek corridor. And I didn't see anything mentioned that there'd be an environmental impact plan or whatever. Maybe that's already That's the thing you guys do. I just didn't see it there. The other thing, when I when I read through this, I did get pretty confused, and I did only have like a day and a half to look at this and then try to write something and work up, oh, I don't want this by my property, but wait a minute, what's really going on? So if I'm a little disjointed, I apologize. But when I looked at it, I saw one map that has, I guess the future plans, the dream plan but there's a paved trail going through my property. I wasn't thrilled with seeing that. That seems a little, I don't know. Suspect, yeah, that's it. I realize now that wasn't, that's not in a plan, but it was a little disconcerting, especially because the grade would not accept a paved trail. The one of the other maybe concerns I have here is that the bridge that's proposed by Mills Landing in the future and would go through one of the 2 or 3 of the parcels that the city owns.
Right here on the map, yeah.
Right here on the map?
Yeah.
Right there on the map, it goes through 2 little sections of wetland that are generally underwater. At least one of them is underwater most of the year. So that didn't quite, I don't know, it seemed like it wasn't planned out quite right. The trail would probably have to go straight up to the street, and then what it ends up doing is splitting our neighborhood in half. And 5 of those houses, or 5 or 6 of the houses, would be encircled by park trails. And I have concerns that people would be, instead of parking on the Minnetonka Boulevard side, they just come down Burwell Drive and park on the street. We get a few people who do that anyway because of the entrance at the end of our block.
It's narrow too.
It's pretty narrow. There isn't room to have, even with one car, I think it's okay. But if you get up to Bridge Street, if anybody's parking up there, people park on that bridge. They park on one side, they park on both sides. And it's illegal. The city doesn't do anything about it. I'm not sure why. But it does concern us because you have to go over a bridge to get into our neighborhood, and it's our only entrance and exit out of our neighborhood. And emergency vehicles need to get through. I think that's another issue. Anyway, it breaks up the neighborhood. And then I also noticed with some of the, I'll reread this and try to get to understand this a little bit better. When I read what the Park Board survey came up with, was that 82 of the respondents feel the Big Willow offers the amenities they're looking for now, and that 76% felt access was good enough. Now that leaves others who don't feel that way. 21% would like a dog park. 26% would like more parking. 20% would like more green space. And I think what that all came down to was that we're putting a lot of demands on these parcels of land, and not everybody's going to get everything they want, unfortunately. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I should have commented too, generally in the public, whatever this is called, the public comment area, we appreciate your comments. We don't respond typically to the comments here, but we work with staff through on that. But thank you.
Okay, that's
good feedback.
Yep, thanks. Sorry I get nervous.
Same. You did good.
I didn't cry.
No.
That's a good
We do appreciate your feedback.
Brett?
I Okay, I got that on right. Hi, everybody. I'm Evan Everest. I live in Minnetonka. I just want to say, first of all, that I think this is a really exciting plan to have Big Willow looked at more closely. I'm in there every day. I have kids. We swim in the creek. We play baseball at Big Willow Park. Excited about new concessions because I operate the hot dog roller sometimes. And so I think there's a lot of really positive things here for the community and for the park as a whole. A couple things that I'm just concerned about. I mean, at the beginning, somebody mentioned Big Willow is a big community park. And it is relatively, but it is the smallest community park in Minnetonka. And effectively, it's cut in half by the railroad. A lot of that means there's a northern part and a southern part. The southern part is getting a lot of attention, which makes sense. It's on Minnetonka Boulevard, but it means that it's getting very dense with a lot of the aspects that are being put into it. And I think one of the things that people really value about Big Willow is that it is open. You can walk around. We walk our dogs in there all the time. We love it. You get to see wildlife. And the more structures that are built and put in place, the less you can sort of navigate in the open space of the park. And I think that's one thing people really enjoy. Specifically to the dog park, I have some specific concerns about that. One of which is that it's very close to the creek itself. I don't know if there's been any discussions with the watershed about concerns about not just, even the residents nearby, but with runoff into the creek. And I know that part of the plans were to have maybe more access for kids downstream to be in the creek. And as somebody who has kids that play in the creek, I'm not super thrilled about like a dog park being directly above where my kids might be playing in the creek. And even though it's spread out a ways, I mean, there is data that says, look, if you're within X amount of distance of a dog park, that waste can actually cause E. coli. You hope that people pick up after their dogs, but hope springs eternal. But reality is, people don't. We get a lot of rain that just gushes right into the creek in that area. And so I would say, I was happy to hear some discussion about maybe moving where the dog park is, either whether that's within Big Willow or whether it's somewhere else, just given if there is a better location that is not right on the creek for, I think, some of those ecological concerns, but also just space. And again, the openness of Big Willow, I think, is something that makes it really valuable. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us speak. I'm part of the neighborhood on Burwell Drive. And before I get into the...
Your name?
Oh, sorry, Brad Olson.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment about one of the other areas, just real quick. There is the discussion around the picnic areas. That is really a beautiful spot. I could see that being a picnic area. Where somebody mentioned the chimney that's there. Yeah, and there's topography there. So if it ever was that the dog park got moved to that location, there's a hill in between. Most people probably know that. So just something for consideration. But that is a lovely spot overlooking the creek there. So that's that. But mostly I want to talk about Area 4 and the proposed dog park mostly. The city actually bought our property, and it was part of the green space there where the proposed bridge would go and all that. So I got a little experience on the creek for the last 40 years on Burwell Drive in a couple different locations. So I know the area pretty well. I think what I want to do is just read briefly what one of our other neighbors, Dee's husband Pete, wrote this, and I thought it was very good, and so I'm mostly just going to do this real quick and then just conclude with a couple of comments. So the proposed dog park is undersized relative to comparable facilities in the area and is located immediately adjacent to Minnetonka Boulevard, a high-traffic arterial roadway. This siting creates a foreseeable and elevated safety risk that is inconsistent with generally accepted park design and risk mitigation. Dog park incidents most commonly involve escape at gates or perimeter fencing due to latch failure, human error, digging, jumping, or leash slippage. In this location, there's no meaningful setback or buffer between the dog park and the active traffic lanes. Any escape would place a dog directly into vehicular traffic within seconds, creating a high consequence hazard that is not reasonably mitigated by standard fencing or double gate systems alone. There's just one more paragraph. Additionally, continuous traffic noise and visual stimulation increase canine stress and reactivity, particularly in a small, constrained park. This increases the likelihood of escape behavior and conflicts. Dog parks located within interior park areas or buffered by natural space provide greater safety margins and reduce exposure to these risks. Relocating or setting back the dog park would materially reduce foreseeable safety concerns and potential liability. And I actually lived this out, I don't know if it was 10, 15 years ago. I was coming back on the trail right along Minnetonka Boulevard, about to go on Bridge Street to go down Burwell Drive. And before I turned onto Bridge Street, a guy had his little Westie in his arms. It escaped, ran out into the street, got mowed over by a car, dog died. The man and his son were there. So I've seen it, and so that's why I think this makes sense. I could see how this could be not a good location for that reason. It's location along a busy road, and it is a busy road. There's we hear sirens from squad cars and fire trucks and all that. So I also don't think that coming out there at Shady, it's basically that parking lot. Most of you probably know that's at the intersection of Minnetonka Boulevard and Shady Oak Road, and I don't really think getting in and out of there is really all that great. It's a little tough getting in and out of there, I think. So I just have a couple of other concluding thoughts as maybe some possible alternative sites for the dog park. One has already been mentioned, further to the west, but still in this parkland. I even wonder if Meadow Park, there's 2 skating rinks there, and I don't know how much they get used. And I wonder if one of those could be taken for a dog park, if that would be big enough. And I also wonder about the recreational area, if maybe up along the railroad tracks on the back side of the softball fields. There's a long stretch there, and there's that berm where the tracks are because they're elevated, I believe. And so there's really no worry about noise there. I wonder if there's enough room in there for maybe a more linear, longer dog park. Then one other one, maybe off of Plymouth Road, just before you cross the tracks as you're leaving Minnetonka Boulevard and you're about to cross the railroad tracks heading towards Ridgedale. There's used to be a road that went down in, and there's an area there of flat land down in the park area. I don't know if that'd be a possibility, but there might be enough land in there for it too. So I just wonder about some other alternative spots for it. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to talk, but I'm going to talk. It's just really brief. My name is Alice Harlow. I'm a Burwell Drive resident, and I would just like to stress, I really appreciate Pete writing that up about the safety for dogs and their owners, etc. And I would just like, as a resident, to stress my biggest concern is noise. And we have dogs on our street and a dog park, looking out their window at a dog park. I just feel like there's got to be a better place than across from a residential area. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Pete's letter, is it Pete? Pete's letter is in the addendum in its entirety. So.
Good evening, Diana Houston, Minnetonka. I live fairly close to the park. I've spent a few hours over in the park with the park group doing restoration. I see a lot of activity over there, do a lot of walking over there. I'm going to start with diagram number 1. And so the gentleman who spoke just before, referencing that north side of that back area for a dog park, I thought that, I think, is coming up as a really good suggestion. when I've walked in that back area, I call it the back area where the parking lot goes, curves back there, witnessing what I define as nefarious activity. I didn't hear any mention of any of that tonight. I assume that may happen at a number of different parks. I was glad that I had my walking sticks with me at that point. And regardless, if there was a dog park, I just thought there's so little activity back there if there isn't anything going on. And I thought if there's a dog park, then you get that rotation of activity and more people. It's just that resolves that. So that was the one thing I had concerned about that particular area there.
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
can you go to Area 1?
Sure can. Yeah.
I'm just trying to. Are you talking about this little piece there?
Yeah, I think you're talking about that for the dog park,
Okay.
that green area on the north side. And then you've got that stretch of parking lot right there, a little bit further.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's kind of where the vehicles like to hang out.
Okay.
And so I was just walking all the way down to get to the gazebo, dead end,
Yep.
And so anyway, so that would address that. Also on this diagram, love the proposal for having some type of metered crossing that you see at Gilliam Park.
Yep.
Yes, that area there.
Yep.
Love that. Because I can tell you, kids, bikes, walkers, that would be beneficial. The Area 2, not a lot of comment on that at all. What I see in this is where other than the boardwalk areas where there's the brighter yellow, you're enhancing paths or walk areas that are already existing. So to me, it's reinforcing those. So even though there's that great big one up by Cedar Lake Road, I agree that would help shore that up because, it's just a dirt path. And then moving into number 3, that's a complicated one, and I think it's because you talk about the bundled plan, that big parking lot, and then the shelters, the bridge over there. And I'm wondering if it's more beneficial to take the bundle, pull it out, hold on that. It's going to be a big bundle dollar-wise, too. Work on the other aspects. The thing that I see in this is, again, the paths. If there isn't a path there, people will make it. I mean, they're going to find a way to get from A to B and to Z. So I still see, if you continue on further development, they're going to be doing that east-west kind of southwest. They're going to be walking through there. It's a new area for them to explore. People were talking about the hillside and the rolling and the topography. The hammocker people like to be out there. People are out there, picnicking and, having a good time. And so supporting more of the activities already naturally happening out there and having some nice access points out there. There was a mention of the small parking lot, the very small parking lot in the southeast. Yes, I generally see over there people parking, dog walking, heading into the park. Really not the transfer of people getting over to the soccer. I don't see that as much as an overflow area.
Yeah.
That's really for the park itself. And I would say regardless, if you build it, that big parking lot there, I'm still going to believe they're going to be parallel parking along Minnetonka Boulevard, shortest distance to the path area where they want to walk. So, you can only do what you can do. Then Area 4, I have mixed feelings, again, for the various reasons already spoken about the leashed, off-leash dog area that's fenced, and understand what people are saying, proximity to the houses, to the Minnetonka Boulevard. I kind of look at this as, I know the city is looking for a location for this. Big Willow may just not be suited for it for a variety of reasons. So that may be something to consider, not, finding a better location as mentioned as some other possible areas. The last comment that I will make, it has to do with the demolition of the building. What I've appreciated in the park is a little bit of history there's a remnant from every household that's been there. And so I'm anxious to see what the remnant will be from that most recently purchased parcel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And thanks for your volunteer work in the park. You and your group do a great job. Thank you. Any more comments, questions? Yeah.
Sorry, I came mostly to maybe just hear the Cullen presentation, but I'm Joe Van Sloan. I'm a resident of Minnetonka. I'm also the former chair of the History Commission of Minnetonka, which existed and doesn't at this point. But I just want to put a push in for if there's a possibility of more historical interpretive signs in the park. I think that would be a fantastic idea. Our commission brought forward a plan for several signs around the city. It had budgeting, and then it kind of disappeared. So if that opportunity is there with the funds, I think that would be a great additional opportunity to show the community's history, inform newer residents that moved in this area what the history is of this community, and I think that would be fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I want to thank all the people who came and commented tonight, and staff will take those into consideration. Some good feedback. Any more? From a formal perspective, you have enough feedback from what we've shared for you to work towards your next draft?
Absolutely. I think we're getting that direct feedback. That's what we needed.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we throw a lot against the wall in this process. So it's very helpful for me to have this conversation in this setting to really talk it through.
Great.
We're pulling from a lot of previous plans and a lot of previous meetings that have discussed these things, but the rubber really hits the road when we put things on paper, and I know that's when it gets serious. So this is the time. If we're trying different things, we're hearing that tonight.
Well, then I think I want to again thank you for your effort, Eric and Matt. Oh, you got
one more
yes.
note.
Yep.
The plan is available on Minnetonka Matters for download. Apologies for the large file sizes. There is a guest book open. We can certainly take emails to my inbox. I am the contact person listed there. I'm always happy to talk on the phone as well. But that guest book is open, and we're going to have that plan up for the next several weeks, month and a half or so, for feedback as we incorporate these comments that we've heard from the Park Board tonight into the next version. So plenty of opportunity. This process is really just getting started to some degree. So be sure to reach out as necessary.
Great. Well, I want to thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
So with that, we're going to go to, I guess it's now 7C, the Cullen Nature Preserve Master Plan.
All right, thank you, Chair and Park Board members. Appreciate some members of our audience who've been very patient here. So this is the Cullen Nature Preserve Master Plan. As you recall, you have seen a draft of this plan before. And so Matt will provide a presentation, an update of what we're considering a final draft plan. We are looking for, this is where we're looking for a motion from the Park Board to recommend approval to the City Council, if we can get there. If there are perhaps minor changes that the Park Board is interested, we can certainly incorporate that into the motion if you would like. So,
Great.
so we are hoping to get a motion out of this one.
So again, a bit of a summary. This Cullen Nature Preserve parcel came out of the post plan. The city had owned this at that point in 2022, and I'll get into a little bit of background, but I presented this to you folks in August, I believe, at this point. So we have a opportunity for a new park. That's rare in a developed second ring suburb like Minnetonka. So early in 2025, we started working with Bar Engineering to develop a master plan for Cullen Nature Preserve. It's been closed to the public since the city has owned it. We have this ongoing relationship with the Friends of the Cullen Nature Preserve and Bird Sanctuary that have helped coordinate a lot of the restoration work out there that I'll cover briefly, but also helped inform this master planning process quite a bit. So some key things that we wanted to consider in this master plan. It is not open to the public yet, so we need to provide resident access to the site to experience these restorations within these natural plant communities. We really want to lean into this idea of this distinct nature-focused sense of place, and that you'll see that reflected in all the amenities and elements in the master plan. We know we need park access. There's no formal parking lot at this point, so this master plan identifies a location for a new parking lot. We certainly want to support the key partnerships, the Friends and other volunteer groups that spend a lot of hours out there and really have built a sense of community around this particular space in the city. The master plan also includes design standards, as I mentioned in the Big Willow plan, how we build trails, how we limit impacts from the construction of various features. This will also provide an opportunity to interpret these high-quality native plant communities for ongoing generations. Really, the goal here is to develop stewards for the future. So, new document available, again, up on Minnetonka Matters. This is considered the final version at this point. We did include comments from the last time we talked this through, so I'll point that out as I go through this document. So again, a little bit of the history for the new member in the House tonight. This is a 30-acre historic homestead site. It was sold to the city a number of years ago, and it's under conservation easement with the Minnesota Land Trust. We identified it early on as an ideal site for natural resources restoration, and restoration really began in earnest in 2022. It is under conservation easement, so that means it requires the land to remain undeveloped and to be available to the public for nature observation, study, and reflection. We can't install any buildings or any active recreational ball fields or anything on a parcel like this. So parking, trails, benches, signage, and small gathering spaces constructed are permitted to provide access and comfort on the site. So here's an idea of where the parcel is in Minnetonka, so just north of where we are at this point. You can see it from 494 just before you get on the exit onto 394. I always glance over in that direction as I drive by. It's 30 acres of land. A lot of it is upland oak savanna, increasingly oak savanna at this point. We've done significant restoration to get it to that point. It's a mix of prairie, wetland, mixed deciduous woodland, and again wetlands, because it is a lot of wetlands. So as I mentioned, we work very closely with the Friends of Cullen Nature Preserve and Bird Sanctuary. They have a very beautiful website. I'd recommend checking it out. They're highly engaged. They really spent hundreds of hours at this point on this site, talking it through with us, meeting us with us, and offering their insights. And it's really been an amazing relationship. They've also provided financial support through this project and have worked really closely with us throughout the ongoing restoration that we've been performing. So we did go out to the community for input on this. So we offered these image boards to try to get a sense of what sort of amenities the folks were generally interested in, and you'll see that summarized in the master plan document. Some of the key considerations that we know we had to look at closely in this process: the parking location and the right amount of parking. How could we accomplish trails that would fit into the landscape, not add to erosion issues, and generally provide loops that sort of highlight the overview of the wetland and some of the really beautiful substantial view sheds through that area. So where do we sort of site those throughout the park? And you'll see that represented in a number of figures and images in the master plan. For the parking, we're proposing moving the parking to Oakland Road. There was some conversation at the last park board meeting about what the right amount of parking is. We're building this. We want it modestly sized, but we certainly want to be able to get buses in and sort of, the consideration of we're getting more traffic than we expected. We want to make sure that there's available parking. So at this point, I want to again reiterate this is a master plan concept, that there would be, out of this process, a more thorough design that would look into the real footprint of this parking and the appropriate amount of stalls. We feel strongly that this is the appropriate amount for the needs. There is overflow parking in Meadow to the south, but it is a bit of a walk. But again, if we were budgeted to design this, there would be further considerations about the amount of stalls. Yes, of course.
Later. Do you want to go through? Let's finish. Yeah.
Getting there. So there is some precedent images in the document that sort of highlight the type of architecture, simple lines, modern, timeless aesthetic. appropriate materials, using the right metals, the right woods that sort of fit into the landscape, that don't become objects out on the landscape. We want a sort of threshold feature near the parking where you sort of get the sense that you're leaving your car behind, you're entering this nature-focused place. So using some architectural, artistic features to sort of create that vibe as you enter into the park. In the document, you'll find a trails concept. We had heard previously some concern about some of these trails being close to property boundaries. Keep in mind that as a master plan process, there's a lot of on-site consideration of where these trails where they will go needs to take place in the field. So there are lines on this figure now, but there's a lot that would happen in terms of determining the exact location. We certainly wouldn't want trails to be able to see nearby houses, so we would fit those into the landscape appropriately. What we would like to do is create loops that move up and down these slopes in a way that don't damage the slopes, where we're trying to fit in the grade of these natural paths in the landscape in an appropriate, thoughtful way. We also want to get to sort of significant secondary gathering places that folks are going to want to stop and look out on the landscape, where we could include some simple park amenities like benches. We have some precedent examples in the document. You'll see some classic stone council rings, locally sourced stone seating, very simple, very easy to maintain aesthetic to the whole thing. Some visualizations of the overlook and sort of the extent of the view sheds that you get in the park. We are proposing a boardwalk, 2 segments of boardwalk down along the wetland edge. We could use this as an opportunity to do significant wetland plant community restoration on the inside of the boardwalk, knowing that we can sort of isolate it from the invasive Phragmites and cattails and reed canary grass. We could sort of showcase wetland plant community restoration along this boardwalk in a sort of controlled environment where we're already doing a ton of upland restoration. So an opportunity to focus in on wetland restoration, which is something we don't get to do very much. We do have detailing and standards in the document, again highlighting how we would construct some of these trails to reduce erosion and sort of keep the character of the space in mind. So these earthen style paths, relatively small footprints, but they would have to be benched into the slopes appropriately and sited appropriately so that they conform with the landscape and don't add to erosion or increase foot traffic over time, increasing erosion. So we want this document to serve as a mission to champion the conservation values. We're going to do that through thoughtful interpretation of the on-site features, specifically around not only the history of Anne Cullen Smith donating this parcel and her legacy in the city, but the restoration work, the volunteerism, and sort of the means and methods of restoration on site. Really the goal here would be to establish Cullen as a nature preserve and really define that as passive uses that don't impact the ecology. And with that said, at the last meeting, you folks talked quite a bit about this additional consideration of potentially changing park ordinance to limit the use of the site, specifically around only allowing service dogs in the park. So I'd like some additional feedback tonight on that particular conversation. The current funding situation is that, unfortunately, we applied for but were denied a Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources grant early last year. That was a big ask to implement all the elements of this master plan. We were turned down, unfortunately. But we do have capital improvement plan efforts coming up, and that budget may be included in the as per council direction. We will include that as an ask in the capital improvement plan, but the council will discuss and apply budgets appropriately. And then we're exploring future grant opportunities moving forward. So there's certainly a lot more restoration to do, and there are grants available to implement some of these park amenities. So we're keeping an eye on all those things. But restoration is certainly continuing. We've been very successful out there. The Friends are hosting a variety of inventorying style events, scientific citizen science events out there, bird, vegetation, and pollinator surveys. Really amazing way for folks to engage in these natural spaces. We're going to go for the prescribed burn. Last time the bullet said we're going to burn in 2025. Unfortunately, the burn failed for some reason. It appeared to be great conditions, but we just could not get that thing to start, despite the contractor running around and dropping flaming oil all over the place. It just wouldn't get going. So we're going to try it again this spring in hopes that the grasses out there have been matted down and thoroughly dried out more. So we're hoping to do a big, spectacular burn out there.
Spectacular, huh?
Yeah, it will be spectacular. And then future phasing of the restoration is tied to the grant and overall budget availability. So the action tonight requested is to recommend approval of the Cullen Nature Preserve Master Plan to the Minnetonka City Council for review and adoption. And I would thank you, and I'm open for
I'm
questions or
guessing
feedback.
Ann wants a question.
I had a couple. There's a little regarding parking.
Yes.
On the east side of Oakland Road, there was a little tiny sliver of land, and I wondered if that must have been owned before the Oakland Road was put in or something.
Yep.
Is that big enough to put a couple cars?
It's a really tight spot, and the concern would be an additional crossing.
Yeah, true. I understand that, but it's...
There's a trail along there, so the cars would have to go across and fit in there, so it probably wouldn't
Okay,
work.
never mind. If there was CIP funding, that would be available when? I mean, it seems like
27. So
oh, okay, not as far out as I was
the
worried.
goal would be, it was a contingent page in last year's plan, but we didn't unfortunately get the grant. So we would rewrite it in a way asking for the funds.
The whole amount?
Yep.
Okay.
Asking the city.
Yes, the city.
And then I was interested to hear that you were willing to consider some wetland restoration in other plan documents. We've said we're not going to do wetland restoration because it's a big mess.
It's hard to
Too hard.
It's hard to start a restoration in a wetland that doesn't have some sort of discrete boundary to it. There's a lot of inputs. But in an area like this where we have an active restoration community and we would have a lot of eyes on it in that perspective, it seems if we're ever going to do wetland restoration, this seems like the spot to take it on.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds, so just give me the really short answer. So I understand the delineation. So you've got these crescent-shaped areas. Wouldn't seeds and stuff flow back and forth with the water? And
I wouldn't say that there's flowing water through here. It does slowly elevate and get saturated, and there's standing water through there. But yes, there are cattail seeds blowing all around.
Okay. Okay. I'm not saying don't do it. I was just trying to catch up with.
We would have to think very carefully about the effort that would require, what ongoing maintenance would that require.
It would be interesting to see what it's supposed to look like. So, okay. And can you talk a little bit about where the trails go over or across the ravines?
Yes, so there are some sort of ephemeral creeks that form at various times of the year, and in the plan you'll see some detailing of what these sort of rustic crossings could look like. They would require a little bit of engineering to make sure that they don't erode or fall in these areas, but provide crossings where you're not scrambling through these ephemeral creeks that form.
And so it would prevent erosion and all that good stuff.
Exactly.
Do these trails need to support a vehicle?
The goal would be whatever restoration we're doing, and those ATV-style vehicles, for instance, the burn crews had these...
Side-by-sides?
Yeah, side-by-sides.
Okay.
that style of vehicle, low ground pressure, they're generally known, but we wouldn't be clearing snow off these trails. We wouldn't be needing to access them the way we do on our formal trails.
On even the accessible loop?
The accessible loop would be the distinction.
Okay.
I think that would be one that we would consider maintaining throughout the winter.
So
to provide that access.
I was thinking about vehicle weight. The small gator type things aren't very heavy. And
Correct.
So they wouldn't support a regular pickup truck.
With the sort of dimensions of these footpaths that we're proposing, we wouldn't want pickup
No.
trucks on either
Okay,
side. They're
good.
not going to be designed for that.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Other questions come, Jennifer?
At what time, or at least I recall our conversation, was to have a boardwalk to the island? People usually like walking to islands. Is that part of the connection? Because I'm not seeing it.
So we had talked with the Friends and others internally about preserving the island as a true preserve, as a sanctuary, that you can experience it with your binoculars and while listening for bird song, but keeping that as a true sanctuary, not bringing foot traffic out there.
Do people try to get out there, or do you think we will?
It's
have
tough to walk
issues?
through. Most of the year, it's tricky to walk through there, except for the driest parts of the summer.
And then my other questions were about the LCCMR. Did they give you an explanation of why they didn't fund it?
Well, it was a really tough year. There was a lot of funding cuts a lot of that money comes from the federal government. Well, that's state government, but there were funding cuts in a lot of university-related scientific studies that would have been federally funded. So what I heard is the LCCMR monies went to those ongoing studies that would have lost their federal funding.
Did they encourage you to apply again, or do they think that's going to be a...
We were pretty low on the matrix of... we're in a tough spot. There are a lot of needs coming out of that grant pool.
I used to apply myself in previous work, but we got funded at the state park level. And so legacy, I'm assuming you're going to look at some legacy and Met Council funding sources.
DNR, community partners, legacy fundings, those seem to be the key opportunities.
Sounds good. Thank you. That's all I had.
Oh, you can go first.
Yeah, I really appreciate this plan. I think it must have been very fun to have the opportunity to make a new park in the middle of the city. I also appreciate the small piece of stormwater infrastructure in the parking lot. It's always a good sort of learning opportunity for everyone to sort of see some stormwater infrastructure, a rain garden there. What I'm wondering is really about these gathering spaces. There are a lot of them on here, and I'm wondering if I'd like to hear a little bit more about what the intended audience or intended use for those are, and if they're all being designed, if you're sort of picking one of the design offerings or making them each different for specific uses.
Yep, so great question. The placement of these are sort of based on, you can see in some of the topography, these sort of nodes that overlook one another, and they're sort of natural destinations. You know, we have this human instinct to go to the overlook. So rather than allow those to form on their own, we would sort of cite a little bit of seating in those locations. And they do look crowded on this figure, but in reality, when you're out there, they're at a distance to one another. And we would position the benches or the view shed in a way that you're not just looking at the back of somebody's head on the next knoll. And throughout that design process, as I mentioned in terms of the trail layout, it's really sited in the field. We put these lines and these overshed locations, these view shed locations on this map, but really it comes down to walking out there and determining what are we looking at and flagging in the field prior to trail installation. So it's really a thoughtful field process, more so than us just drawing some lines on this figure.
Yeah, because I appreciate that. I think it's nice to sort of be able to widen the path in areas where you expect people to stop anyway. Because you had mentioned like the parking lot having room for maybe buses to come by as well. is there, I guess there's one like primary gathering space. Is there a space designed a little bit more for larger group gatherings?
Yes, that
Like,
would be
who is
that's
for
the
you?
idea of that sort of council ring primary space, that it could be an educator with 20 kids or so. We even did some radius drive analysis through that little parking area. Could you get a little bus through there? So we would have to study that closer. Ideally, we could drop kids off, and then the bus could turn around in Meadow and come back up for pickup. So yes, those are things we'd be thinking through.
Katie?
3 comments. One, is this going to have online community feedback as well?
Yep, it's up for feedback now.
Okay, I didn't hear you say that. Okay,
Yep,
good. So that's coming in.
correct.
And then 2, in the last plan, I really appreciated the table that summarized the recommendations
Sure.
and the priority levels, because
Yep.
they're all spread out in the 3 sections and they're hard to get your head all around.
Yep.
So something like that, with costs too, would really help me assess what could we really do, what do we really think we can budget for and what's not. I don't remember what we had in the CIP specifically for how many of these things we could fund
Yeah.
over the next 3 years. So
And that's something the
putting that all
council's gonna
together on a
want.
table might help put it all together in a
Yep,
picture.
absolutely. And there, we do have cost estimation, and really this being a brand new park, it was sort of all lumped together rather than high priority, low priority. The thought was we'd implement this all at once and have a big grand opening. That was the intention at
Really?
least. But there's a price
Oh,
tag to
really?
that. So for reference, we
Yeah, I can't wait to see the
requested over $700,000 for the LCCMR.
Does that seem like enough? Doesn't seem like enough. I don't know. Third comment was, I'm still worried you're grossly underestimating the parking.
Yeah.
How do you feel if people are parking up and along Oakland? Because that's what's going to happen. They're not going to. There's
Sure.
so many people from accessibility standpoint that aren't going to walk from Meadow.
I'm nervous about overbuilding parking and having it unused for a few times of the year when we would need it. We'd have to be thoughtful about that.
Yeah. With an investment of the size that I'm imagining,
Sure.
my neighborhood park has more parking spots than this park does. It's
Out of this
that worries
master
really
plan
well.
process, we would then enter a design of that parking lot, and that would be engineering. So we'd look, again, real closely at that.
Caleb?
Yeah, so was wondering, you know, I'd mentioned at a previous meeting the city-owned marsh lands and whether or not they could just be basically incorporated into what we'd be calling the Cullen Nature Preserve. Yes, they're not part of the original Cullen Homestead, but why not effectively add them and make them? It's not demonstrated in this legend. So can you address that, and then I'll have a second question.
You're talking about these parcels out here?
Yeah, you have them in a previous
Yeah, it shows up. They're
map
over there.
that's larger, overview.
This one
So
here.
you
Yeah.
can see 1 and 2, the triangle and then the trapezoid, right?
Yep.
Those are city-owned.
These ones,
That, yep.
The difficulty there is that it's really inaccessible. That there's, short of a boardwalk into that along the highway there, it just felt nice to keep Cullen sort of discreet with the island looped in
And
there.
Cullen has specific, it'd be a little tricky if you made it part of the same thing, but it's not restricted to the same degree. In other words, there's specific rules around the pink area that wouldn't apply to the city outlots, if you will.
Well, nothing's a park yet.
No, but I just mean, if it became part of the park, you could do things on the left that you can't do on the right. If utility work,
Yeah,
other stuff,
drainage or
you wouldn't want to
stormwater
get
work.
into.
That is true.
That's just my thought, anyways.
So you're concerned that those 2 marsh areas would need significant development?
No, I just mean if for some reason Darren or somebody had to do something in those spaces, you wouldn't want to have confusion about whether they're restricted as Cullen is. Because Cullen's covenants are, for lack of a better term, covenants are pretty restrictive and require at least 2 or 3 governmental groups to review them.
The current land trust easement that we have is this parcel.
And it's not uncommon to have a deed restriction in one parcel and not in others in a park. And so, but I hear what you're saying, and I guess I want to get an homage, is that the right word, to the Cullen and keep it pure. And I like just keeping that one, even though there is adjacent lands. I don't know, like you said, how accessible or how desirable it would be without having boardwalks in there.
And you can still do that, but not have it be technically called the same, if you will, whatever. I'm sorry, you had another comment
Yeah.
or two.
Well, I mean, I hear what you guys are saying. I guess I'm just like, why not add those in? And yes, they have the same restrictions, and make them have the same restrictions. I mean, why wouldn't we want to protect those marsh areas the same as we would Cullen?
So are you saying because it's contiguous to?
Because it's contiguous. And also, this is one part of the plan, but 20 years from now, people may be saying, yeah, we want boardwalks out in that space, and it's part of Cullen, and we want to get out there and loop around. And yeah, that's money and it's time and it's down the road, but if we just incorporate it now into the named Cullen Nature Preserve with the same restrictions.
Well, the restrictions, just because I come from a real estate background with conservation easement, was given by the previous landowner
Yes.
and is being held by MLT. And so in order to have those same restrictions on the city parcel, then they would be putting a restriction on their own land, which isn't very common for public to put that. You would
that's
have your
that's
own,
a better way to put what I'm trying to say.
you would have your own administrative guidelines of what the limitations are, like not having dogs in there, but you wouldn't.
You can manage it the
there's a
same
yeah.
way. You can manage it identical
Yeah.
without formally
putting those
putting them together.
restrictions, because those conservation easements also include monitoring and a lot of other staffing levels to comply with conservation terms. So, but you could, in theory, doing it.
Do we think that not incorporating them into a single Cullen Nature Preserve would be detrimental to future kind of integration of those sites into like a boardwalk use or some other use that connects what would be two separate park spaces?
The city manages and provides protections for wetlands all over. So those regulations and requirements would be in effect regardless, whether or not it's officially part of Cullen.
I think from my point of view, if this was upland, I would probably be a champion with you. But I'm seeing this wetland area as not desirable and locations for the public to outdoor recreate, because it's going to be wet and perhaps not safe for people to go out there.
It's also very close to 494, and at that point there's no sound wall.
Yep.
So it would be, the closer you get to 494, I mean, I understand your drive to expand the, why not make the park bigger, but it's, my feeling is that if there's money if we have money to put boardwalk out that close to 494 would be one of the lower priority than many of the other things we've been talking about in this park and in Big Willow.
But I do like what you talked about before, Caleb, with connecting it and having some connection to the meadow in that south east corner.
Yeah, I'd rather have boardwalks in Meadow connecting over to Cullen. You're kind of right where you are there.
The road,
I think you brought that up last time.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. The second thing was I had asked about expanding the accessibility trail. It looks like it's the exact same size. So what was the, why is that? What are the issues?
The issues are creating accessible slopes and the amount of engineering and the siting of those particular trails through that area. At this master plan level, it's really hard to say we could get ADA trails in here. We would need to look really closely at it. So I did add a bunch of language stating that we would look very closely during the trail design, where could accessible trails be implemented beyond the one we show, as sort of intentionality in the future, that we would try to get as much of that in, balancing the impacts to the plant communities out there as much as we possibly could.
Yeah, and even if it's not even if it's not, loop, even if it's we can extend an accessibility trail to a
out and back,
a communal space, a roundabout is what I guess I'd call it, right? Then all the better, in
Absolutely.
my opinion. And
like,
for
for instance, this particular node here, how this slope works, would there be a chance to get
in there,
an ADA trail through here? That would be an option.
And especially, because I was able to walk this with the friends, the I'm gonna say north, the north natural surface is, that's how we walked back, and it was pretty flat coming back to
across the top
of the park.
Sure.
So again, that may be a place where an out and back is accessible.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I've got a couple comments. Well, first question, so the neighbors on the north side is concerned, you're going to be taking into account, from what I gathered, as you do your actual siting.
Absolutely.
Visibility, okay.
I don't think anybody wants to walk on a nature trail that sees a residential
Backs
house.
houses.
The whole
Yeah.
intention here is that those are significantly separated. We've heard the concern about that trail being too close to the property boundary, and I mean it when I say we don't want to be able to see houses. And by the benefit, those people wouldn't be able to see anybody in the parks, ideally.
The second thing is, I would concur with Katie about I'm nervous about the parking lot size.
Sure.
Don't want it so big that it looks empty or take up space. But on the other hand, don't want it so small that it's, so I would really look hard at that because it feels tight to me.
We had talked about different types of paving, like a traditional asphalt lot with an ADA stall, and then a gravel overflow portion where additional parking could stack up, but we don't need to plow it or maintain asphalt, for instance. That there's sort of an overflow.
And then maybe oddball question, memorial benches. They're pretty popular in various parks. I don't see any reference here. Has there been thought about that? I have a perspective on that, but has there been thought about that?
And I'd have to refer to the document, but I think there was some talk amongst us during this process that if there was to be any memorialization, it could happen at this entry feature, potentially.
Okay. Because personally, just one person voted, I like memorial benches, but I would not, I think this is sort of a planned preserve, and the idea of populating it with people calling and saying, I want to get a memorial bench would be detrimental to your plans.
Agreed. I think the intentionality of this entry sort of feature would potentially be the appropriate spot to do that sort of thing.
I think the plan is great, and I really applaud your efforts. I applaud the friends. I mean, having gone through the space after it was bought, unofficially in the woods, tromping around through buckthorn so thick I could hardly see. I lost my dog. This is before there were problems about that. And now seeing how much it's come, it's just incredible, the progress, and I applaud you all for those efforts. Regarding the dogs, I'm not too sure what our vehicle is. I would second the point of view about restricting to service only, because we have to have service dog access, so to speak. But we've never had dogs here, and why? And I'm as you all know, I'm a big dog lover, but I would prefer we don't introduce them where they haven't been, particularly given the intent of the grantor or whatever the Smith family's terminology is. I don't think that would be consistent with what they had in mind, nor with what the intention of the preserve is. So I don't know if if the park board's in agreement, whether we do that as a motion, as part of the adoption, or however, you can tell us how we do that.
Chair and Park Board members, if you do move to recommend approval of the plan, you could add as part of that motion that the master plan could be tweaked to say, or have some language put in it to say that the intent is that any dog would be precluded from being on the site except for service dogs. So basically what I'm saying is you could pass a motion to recommend approval, but have it include language related to keeping dogs out of the property except for service dogs, and have that be as part of your motion. As far as how that happens, then the council, once they approve the plan, then we have to go through the process to actually designate this as a park, which would be more of a legal process, and at the same time could also then change the park regulations to have a special regulation for
Specific to this park.
Specific to Cullen, and have specific rules for Cullen.
And are we calling this a park or a preserve?
Well, my understanding is it's city park land. I mean, any park land is a designated park, and that's more of a zoning code, I guess. But it's a preserve in name and type based on our post plan.
And it would be our only preserve.
The only, true nature preserve.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still a park. I mean,
yeah,
it's still
I know, but I
designated as
mean,
parkland.
Because people have this, there's this confusion about our community parks preserves, because all of our big parks are combination parks preserves, and this is a preserve.
This is 100% a preserve. Yes.
Okay, great.
Let's follow up to that. First of all, just a great plan. I mean, I said this many months ago. It's so rare that you get an opportunity to have a blank canvas and paint on it like this, so just wonderful. Is there any way to partner with the concept of this being a preserve, but I also want to sort of focus on it being a bird sanctuary? Is there any way to partner with Nature Conservancy, Cornell Ornithology, any groups that could also create some granting opportunity and fundraising opportunities in collaboration if we focus on the bird sanctuary part of it?
Well, I think you're describing a lot of what our friends of Cullen Nature Preserve and Bird Sanctuary do these days. Like they're doing the citizen science work, and they are pursuing grant and other financial opportunities quite a bit. So they're really locked in on that.
Great.
And it's amazing to have a partner that's not
If
the government.
If this does have a nice ecosystem specifically for birds that are not being seen in other parts, like I think at one point someone said there's a red-headed woodpecker you never see anymore.
Yep.
That's a draw. That's a really big draw for the people in the birding community.
Absolutely.
Bigger parking lot.
No, it's true. I mean, people who are birders are pretty fanatic. So.
I'd also be supportive of that additional language regarding restriction of dogs, and that's just a conflict of interest with wildlife and birds, and Audubon Society is another potential source when you brought that up. But as far as the parking, I'm going to disagree respectfully that I like the limited parking, because I think that the increased parking would be detrimental to...
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, that it'd be detrimental to the intent, which is reflective observation, not crowds. So I'm just wanted to voice that alternative opinion.
Ann, go ahead.
Okay, I'm in favor of no dogs. I'm in favor of the existing small parking amount with some signage that says we invite you to park down at Meadow and get your extra steps in. And the third thing is, I know that the concept is do it all at once. I would suggest that if there's not enough money to do it all, to save the boardwalk section of trail and it's the little tails that go down to it till later, just rather than delay everything, if that was
sure
an option.
If there's no more comments now, I think we have, Gerald does anyone want to speak or not?
I can say a few words, sure.
And then we'll come back to our motion.
There's people behind you too. Do you all want to talk?
Yeah, you said you wanted to talk, didn't you?
Well, I think I'm okay at the moment.
Okay.
How about you?
I apologize. I don't have eyes back here. I didn't miss that.
I'm Gerald Gershon, president of the Friends of Cullen Nature Preserve and Bird Sanctuary, and I live in Minnetonka. In fact, a little factoid, I lived for 32 years 6 blocks south of the preserve, and we just moved 6 blocks north of the preserve. So we're very, very committed to this incredible jewel that we have here. And thank you all for your support. It's been a great collaborative effort working with the city. We really appreciate that. And thank you for your thoughtful consideration and your excitement for what's going to happen. And we're just really happy, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, at a minimum, do we want to have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. See, I still can't see. Go on up there, and you have to give us your name and talk into the little microphone. Apologize.
Hello, my name is Randy Circum, and I live on Crown Hill Lane, which is just north of the preserve area. And we're very excited for the development of the preserve area. I mean, we've lived there for 8 years now, and I've tromped through there, just to kind of check it out. But to have a area that has trails and development would be a big addition to the park. My main question is, what is the process for dividing the trails and the timeline for that?
Yep.
And what are the opportunities for community input?
Sure, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, that trail design process is really a sort of intuitive field process. So, I could see us doing some walking out there, doing some flagging, even standing in certain areas and having nearby residents look out their window. Can they see those sorts of things? I think that's very reasonable. Like I said, we wouldn't necessarily want a trail heading towards a house where we can see into a kitchen window. So we want to make sure those are appropriately spaced. So I could see us doing some flagging or lath and applying some wooden lath through there and test running it for a little while as we sort of figure out the placement of it. And that wouldn't be until, if the budgeting was approved by the city council, that wouldn't be until spring 27 or ground thaw 27, when we could start walking and laying the trail out.
What is the best way for us to remain involved in that? Is it through friends, through the Minnetonka Matters? What's the best way?
Through me specifically. The Minnetonka Matters will continue to have updates on that. But as the plan sort of begins to be rolled out through the implementation process, there would be additional mailers, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer questions, and I would just ask that you log into Matters and sort of stay tuned to the latest.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Joe Van Sloan, resident of Minnetonka. And I mean, I've been driving by the preserve, for the past 3 or 4 years, and I go, is it open? Is it open? Is it open yet? Is it open? I see cars. Is it open? I also have the fortunate to help run a family foundation that's started by my aunt and uncle, and I got onto the Friends site, which is very nice. And they kept saying, well, we're going to fund you in 2025. No, maybe 2026, because we didn't get the LCC market. Well, 2027. I go, okay, we've got to figure something out here, because this is going on forever. So I'm working with Gerald and the Friends to see if I can help facilitate some greater funding this year, and maybe go forward with trying to complete the restoration portion of it. I know the ask is for $900,000 to complete it all, but we'll see what we can make happen as soon as possible. So, thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you for that comment. Anyone else?
I'm with him. I'm with
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember from a couple meetings ago, right? Yeah.
The burglaries.
Yeah, the Glen Mason house.
Yeah.
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 So, and the other one across the street from our house, so
Okay.
there's been 2 of 8, so.
Thank you. If there are no more comments or questions, any more discussion anybody want, or do I want to hear a motion?
Oh, you want to hear a motion?
Yeah, if people are ready for a motion.
Okay, I move that the park board approve the plan with the additional specification that only service dogs are allowed, and anything else?
So just a reminder, this is a recommendation for the council to approve
Yeah.
the plan. The council's actually approved.
Okay,
you're
so
making a,
So we're not approving the plan, we're approving the moving forward to the council.
exactly. And recommending that the council approve the plan.
Yeah.
It's confusing, I know.
It's up on the board.
Oh.
Okay, so I
With the
move-
addition of the dogs.
I move that we recommend approval of the Cullen Nature Preserve Master Plan to the Minnetonka City Council for review and adoption, with the one addition that it's specified that there's no dogs allowed except service dogs, even if they're on leash.
Right. Only service
And-
probably best say only service dogs would be allowed in the park, would be my guess. Because they're always,
And do we also need to then specify that there needs to be a special Cullen Park ordinance? Or
that was come out of it?
That would come out of
Okay.
the adoption
Okay.
of this by the council.
I second the motion.
All right. No more discussion? I will take roll call. So Christie.
Yes.
Hanley.
Yes.
Cadet.
Yes.
Lehrman.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Samersky.
Yes.
And Chair Ingraham.
Yes.
All right.
And if you go back to the very first slide,
Are you sure the first one?
well, I think so. No, I'm sorry, the third slide. For that one.
This
Fourth
one.
slide.
This one.
Just want to compliment whoever took that picture.
Courtesy of the
I love
Friends
that
of Cullen
photo.
Nature Preserve and Bird
I
Sanctuary.
know.
Let me get
Someone
photo
snapped
credit.
it though, and that's a great picture.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you all. Thank you for your patience, all of you, including the people behind me. Now we're on to 8A, information items, reports from staff.
Yes, Chair and Park Board members, we have one information item, and this relates to a project on Purgatory Creek in Purgatory Park that you may have heard about. So Matt is going to provide an update because it's Matt's project.
Me again. Thank you, Chair Ingraham, Park Board. A couple years ago now, we accepted over $104,000 in grant funding from Bowser, the Board of Water and Soil Resources of the state of Minnesota, and the Riley Purgatory Bluff Creek Watershed District to stabilize the banks of Purgatory Creek in Purgatory Park. It's a 300-foot stretch that has been eroding and eating the trail away. More recently, the City Council signed off on a maintenance agreement with the Watershed District to facilitate permitting of this project. We've been undergoing substantial permitting with the Army Corps of Engineers and the Watershed District to ensure that this project meets the standards that they require. But we are at the point where we are expecting permit approval, and this project will be implemented this year. So we will be removing some trees around the area to create this new re-meander of the stream. And I do have a couple quick, is this going to work? Okay, so we're all familiar with the way the creek is eating away the trail here. That's sort of the problem. And the new, oh boy.
Just go back.
And it's a little tricky to read, but this is the re-meander diagram. So these were created by stream restoration engineers, and we're going to use what's called bioengineering, so they're natural materials. We're not armoring the banks. That was part of the necessary solution here. Is it would be impermissible for us to armor the bank with some sort of hard material. So if we wanted to keep the trail there, we need to move the creek away. So the red line is the existing creek center line, and the green is the proposed. So we're swinging it away from the creek, and we're doing it in a way where these bends are armored with natural materials. So primarily root wads that are plunged into the banks and then revegetated. They're sort of naturalistic. But to accomplish this, we do need to pull some trees out of this corridor. There's some big willows that have been sort of splitting apart through this area. It's a highly visible spot. It's highly used trail corridor, so we wanted to make the public and you folks aware that we are going to be pulling these trees down this winter on frozen ground and storing those large roots to be used in this bioengineering and sunk into the banks to protect those slopes. So
plans to do anything with the rest of the tree?
Haul it to our brush yard is the plan now.
Okay.
But
Why, do you want some mulch?
There's some value to having just down trees.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
I understand that it can look messy but
well, part of the plan will be to fully revegetate it with appropriate native plant communities. So there are solutions beyond native seeding. Live staking, willows can be used for live staking. There's a variety of native willow shrubs, peach leaf, Ebbs willow, other ones that can be installed in a way where we get shrub cover for birds along that creek corridor. So we would sort of reintroduce the willows over time. But yeah, we would treat it like any of the trees we take down in the city would come to our brush yard.
would they be substantially rotten in the middle? I wondered if they could be, a big chunk could be put up as a standing snag.
We can look into it.
I don't
The
know how
problem
much that
with
would
willows
cost.
is they're soft. It's
Yeah.
generally soft, fast-growing wood, and they do hollow out in the inside. We've lost a lot because they'll be multi-trunked and start to split apart. And once you lose one side, you'll lose the other side. It's a little hard for us to pick and choose logs when we're out there, besides staving the stumps for the bank stabilization.
All right.
But it's a good note. We're always looking to create habitat and down material, and rotting logs do just that.
Yeah. There's cavity nesters and all that. So.
Thanks for the update.
Of course.
Okay, so I can go through upcoming schedule. So we have a few items coming up in March. We're going to give Matt a break. We have, hopefully we'll have Three Rivers Park District coming to talk about the Bryant Lake Trail and provide an update on that effort. We also, based on some conversation with the park board in prior meetings, to learn more about the park investment plan and the trail improvement plan. Darren will come and provide a background on those plans, and look for feedback on how the maintenance and scheduling and rehabilitation and how all that works. If you recall, we had that conversation when we talked about rehabilitating playgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about the Natural Resources Division, provide an update and talk about the education and outreach plan that we implement every year, and just look for feedback on that as well. And then in May, so we don't meet in April. That falls on the spring break, so we take April off. In May, expect to see the Glen Lake Park Plan. That would be a draft. And then also, if you recall, we talked about sort of digging into the park areas of need, that figure 45 from the post plan. So we will provide some information on that. And then in June, you'll likely see the capital improvement plan come before the park board. And I will turn it over to Kelly. Can you talk about the upcoming events?
Other activities. Sauna in the Park is going strong. We have had 1,900 reservations already from September through today. That goes through April. Currently operating Wednesday, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Our summer registration dates are out, so we will have summer registration March 3rd and 5th. Those are very busy dates. The recreation brochure is to the press right now. We anticipate that to hit mailboxes last week of February for that March 3rd registration date. And then lastly, at the end of March, Saturday the 20th, we have the Spring Extravaganza. That's an event kind of geared for kids up to 10 here at the community center, egg hunt, things like that. That is a registration. You have to register for that event. We still have about 70 spots open, but that usually does fill up. So a couple things coming up. Thank you.
When is the Yeti search, whoever it is? Yeti?
The Yeti hunt is done.
It's done.
We did. Yep. We had the Yeti hunt is complete.
Darn.
They did, yes.
Where was it found?
We found him. We got him.
Darn, I missed that. Thank you.
When will the Big Willow plan come back to us?
We're looking at the summer at this point.
Okay, the summer. Thank you.
Number 9, then park board. Is anybody have park board member reports? Caleb.
Yeah, so given the recent ice activity in our community, I just wanted to report I reached out to Tom Olson, a Minneapolis Park Board member, as well as Jace Alexander, to get a better sense of what we as a park board or as a city could be doing to counter the ice offensive, and got some interesting ideas and feedback, as well as some reassurance from Jace Alexander about activity the city's already engaged in, including joining the Safe and Stable Coalition. And so one of the things I was thinking about, because I know the Minneapolis Park Board did this, of course they're a different body than ours, but effectively saying we do not want staging operations occurring on city park lots or park spaces. And then of course the city council in Minneapolis, at the direction of the executive order from the mayor, effectively doing some of the same activity. From my understanding with conversations with Jace Alexander, the Safe and Stable Coalition is working on that kind of language, and the members of the coalition want to kind of speak in the same voice, for there to be the same kind of policy for multiple communities who've decided to be a part of it. So I'm very pleased to learn this and wanted to pass it along to you all if you weren't aware. Hopefully this shores up how our neighbors are doing.
Just an update, I did attend this weekend's, sorry now I lost the name, it's too late.
Kids Fest.
It's the Kids Fest. And it was very well attended, and the staff and volunteers were very helpful and friendly, and everybody looked like they had a great time, and there was a lot of different variety of activities inside and outside for the kids, so nice job.
I did order the weather, so.
Did you? And it was perfect.
It was
kind of
great
like
weather.
raining, you know, when someone sings Purple Rain at the Super Bowl, like, you know.
That's right. That's good.
I'll just say for the record that I've started to go to Minnetonka Matters, been very pleased with the quality of the presentations. I learned a lot. It's very interesting. Even the financial stuff was pretty interesting. So I highly recommend it if you haven't been.
That's the website, you mean? Or the
class?
The class, okay, that's Minnetonka
Oh.
Academy.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's good.
Minnetonka Academy, not
Thank you for the
Matters.
plug. I'll have
Yeah.
to do that. I just say briefly, couple things. Leslie and I presented at the city council meeting on Monday our mission, and along with all the other boards and commissions, our key accomplishments from last year and our work plan summary of our work plan for the coming year. And I think it was well received.
You did a great job.
And to Caleb's point, as an aside, I didn't stay for the whole meeting, but I stayed up past public comment, and the council members' comments and the mayor's comments at the beginning, and the city is heavily engaged in addressing the ice issue at a level I wouldn't have even anticipated here. So I think we should all feel, based on what I heard, we should all feel good about what our elected officials are doing, and the coalition is a key point of that. And along those lines, I just wanted to say, and I mentioned this just in passing at that meeting, you know, with everything going on, it's sort of like, why does this matter? You know, we're just parks. And I just would say, as we learned during COVID, which was another very challenging times, totally different, but challenging, our parks are really a key place of refuge, balance for our residents and visitors. And so we're fortunate in Minnetonka to have a great park system and a great staff of people, you know, managing our parks and natural areas. And I know people appreciate that, you know, always, but I think particularly in times like this, people seek, you know, outlets, and our parks are that. So this does matter a lot. Anyways.
Amen.
If nothing else, I'll take another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Okay,
favor?
all in favor, great.
Aye.
Thank you. Good
That's why you're
meeting.
the chair.
Good stuff, huh?
That's why you're the chair with that one.